Chapter 1178. During the 4 years in Wind and Rain Village, Han Fei had already adapted to his own power. Even though Zhang Xian hadn't cultivated for the past 4 years, the fact that a level 9 spirit meridian could absorb spiritual energy naturally wasn't to be underestimated. Therefore, Han Fei's transition to the peak-level Law Enforcer realm was exceptionally smooth. As for what to prepare, Han Fei knew that the heavenly tribulation was not something that could be done in a day or two, and he had helped others pass the heavenly tribulation more than once or twice. He was not interested in the power of the heavenly tribulation. He even felt that ordinary heavenly talents might not be as powerful as the lightning that he had deduced. Han Fei was walking on the path of invincibility. Shimen Linglan was right. Even heavenly tribulations were his enemies. Besides, Han Fei planned to break through the 4th level of the indestructible body with the power of this tribulation. Shu Xiaoman pondered for a moment and said, "Because our Shimu heaven can't undergo tribulation on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree, every tribulation here basically represents a battle. If you're going through the tribulation, I'll need an expert to protect you." "I can't do that," Han Fei said bluntly. Jing'e might come." "Jing'e." Young man was stunned again. Then she widened her eyes and looked at Han Fei in astonishment. "You mean the static messenger?" Shu Xiao was full of astonishment. Honorable Jing was the most special honorable in the Waterwood Sky. She was the personal maid of her lady queen. If Messenger Jing protected him, wouldn't it mean that even the queen would pay attention to Han Fei's tribulation? Han Fei slightly nodded. It was the heavenly tribulation. If the battle in the Shuimu sky was also fierce, the sea demons would definitely not sit idly by. After all, as long as the person undergoing the tribulation didn't die, it would mean that the Waterwood Sky had gained another explorer. Although explorers could not compare to venerable ones, they were not cabbages, and it was not every day that someone would go through the heavenly tribulation. Even though there were hundreds of millions of people, the explorer-level powerhouses of the Thousand-Star City were still there. How many explorers were there? Even if Shuimu Heaven was much stronger, how many people could undergo tribulation in a year? Based on Han Fei's experience in controlling the City of Justice, it was already impressive for 3 to 5 people to undergo tribulation in a year, and that was under the crazy supply of resources. Normally, there would be an average of 1 or 2 people undergoing tribulation every year, which meant that this city had a deep heritage. Shu Xiaoman said with a complicated expression, "Then I'm afraid we have to wait even more. I originally thought that if you were going to undergo your tribulation, you'd choose the realm of ice because that's the safest place. But if Envoy Jing personally takes action, you might have to reconsider the location of your tribulation." Han Fei. Young Shu said, "You don't know." Although there were constant battles of various sizes between Shuimu Tian and the 2 great royal cities. However, in every Tribulation Transcendence, the eruption of the Tribulation Transcendence battle was secondary. Do you know that after becoming an explorer, you will need to seek the Great Tao? Han Fei nodded. Sure. The Explorer realm was a realm of seeking the Tao. Breaking through the Venerable realm meant confirming the Great Tao. As for the Venerable realm, Water Deity had once told him that it was a process of constantly repairing the Great Tao that had already been determined. Only when he confirmed that his Great Tao was flawless would he attempt to become a king. The Great Tao was different from the path of law enforcement. It was a lifelong goal. Once it was confirmed, it would depend on how far you could go on this path. Young Shu said, "To seek the Tao, one must not let the Tao be incomplete. It's best to get rid of all distracting thoughts before going through the trial, and cut off many mortal karma, and so on." Han Fei continued to nod. The reason why the thug patriarch turned Lin Miao Miao into an undead creature was to make up for the knot in his heart and to help him get rid of this obstacle. Otherwise, why would a venerable care about the life and death of an ordinary great fishing master? Young Shu continued, "But here comes the problem. The Sea Clan has billions of creatures, much more than the other clans in the Shuimu Tian. Therefore, every time someone from our Shuimu Tian transcends a tribulation, The Sea Clan will send out many sea demons to transcend the tribulation together and then provoke them. In this case, if you don't fight and need to consolidate your cultivation, then, when the battle starts, countless creatures will die for you, which will be a huge knot in your heart. Therefore, in every tribulation of the Shuemu Tian, there will be a battle. Many people died in this tribulation transcendence battle. No one who can survive is weak. In this way, the Sea Clan also planted a knot in the hearts of our explorers. Han Fei asked in surprise, "Really?" Young Shu nodded. Of course, the path of cultivation is full of difficulties and tribulations. What we pursue is more and more perfect ourselves and the purest great Tao. Of course, the Sea Clan won't ignore the tribulation of our human race and other races. Although you can also transcend the tribulation in the realm of ice, those who choose to do so usually won't be too strong. The Sea Clan may not care too much, but they will still pay attention to it. But you are so strong that even Master Yu Chen is no match for you. You shouldn't transcend the tribulation in the realm of ice. Han Fei seemed to understand a little. No wonder from the beginning to the end, no one had specifically asked him when he would transcend the tribulation and where he would go. This was King chosen for him. As a person from the Yin-Yang heaven, he was a guest. If he transcended the tribulation in the realm of ice, he would definitely be underestimated. But if he transcended the tribulation in other places, he might be able to fight back against the Sea Clan. Han Fei said casually, "Got it. In that case, don't worry. How difficult are the major battlefields in the Shuemu Tian?" Young Shu was relieved. She stroked her hair and replied solemnly, "There are 4 battlefields in the Shuemu Tian. Among them, there's the whole sea in the south, which is the daily trial ground of the various races. There's the realm of ice in the north, which is not only a trial ground, but also a place where strong masters die in battle. There's an ice wall erected in the realm of ice, and battles often break out there. It ranks 3rd. Han Fei's heart did a flip. It didn't sound simple. A wall defending one side must have suffered a lot. Young Shu continued, "The fiercest battles are in the Sea of Flames in the west. Although the Sea Clan lives in the sea, there are also creatures who can cultivate in extremely cold and hot places. There's a saying that people are as violent as fire, so the battles in the Sea of Flames are the most violent. But the most difficult battles are in the Dark War Port in the east. There are at least 5 venerables guarding there all year round. From time to time, some venerables will go there to investigate. When the battles are at their fiercest, one venerable dies almost every 100 years. It is said that more than 100 venerables have died in the Dark War Port in the Shuemu Tian. Among them, less than 10 died on other battlefields, and the rest all died in the Dark War Port." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. The number of fallen venerables reached 100? Han Fei calculated. How many venerables were there in the 1,000-star city in total? As expected, having a king and not having a king were completely different in nature. In this case, didn't it seem that the eye of the heavenly law was watching the Yin-Yang heaven? Otherwise, if the Yin-Yang heaven could break through to the king realm, it might be a different result. Han Fei couldn't help asking, "Where did Yu Chen break through?" Young Shu Man frowned slightly. She didn't like Han Fei calling her lord by his name. However, thinking that Han Fei was also an extremely strong master, she replied, "The Dark War Port. It is said that in the battle that year, Lord Yi killed 3 enemy explorers in one battle." Han Fei didn't give an immediate answer. He knew that his heavenly tribulation, if nothing unexpected happened, should not be weak. As for where to undergo the heavenly tribulation, it depended on the situation. He couldn't just listen to young Shu Man. As for himself, he had to go and see it. Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Let's go to the realm of ice first, then to the Sea of Flames, and finally to the Dark War Port. How about that?" Young Shu Man nodded. As for how to choose, it was up to Han Fei. Although she wanted to see Han Fei kill everyone after the heavenly tribulation, the Dark War Port was indeed very dangerous. Those who came here were guests, and Han Fei's identity couldn't be simple. Emissary Jing even gave him the venerable token. Different from young Shu Man's thoughts, Han Fei instantly understood why the Life Queen asked Jing to give him the venerable token. Is there anything else that can attract more firepower than this thing? Once he wore the venerable token, he was afraid that the gazes of the entire sea race would fall on him. He wondered if the Life Queen was testing him, or did she want to see his ability? Young Shuman asked, "Shall we go to the realm of ice now?" Han Fei said, "My time is limited. I only have 3 years. Let's go now." Young Shuman was taken aback for a moment. What do you do in 3 years? As far as she knew, it was fast enough to break through to the explorer level in 3 years. After the breakthrough, it was already the limit to stabilize a little. However, although it was extremely dangerous to break through to the explorer level in the Waterwood Heaven, as long as you didn't die, you could be saved anyway. After all, the Life Queen would give you a drop of the spring of life. However, since Han Fei wanted to go, he might as well go. After a while, Han Fei followed young Shuman and took a few more teleportation arrays. Han Fei felt a headache coming on. "Well, young man, may I ask, is there a map on this Cloud Sea Divine Tree? I feel like I'm going to get lost." Young Shuman exclaimed, "I almost forgot that the main routes on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree have a map. I forgot to give it to you." Immediately, young Shuman took out a jade slip and handed it to Han Fei. Han Fei scanned it with his perception and was stunned. There must be hundreds of thousands of teleportation arrays. Young Shuman said, "This is the main route map, which is available for all clans. However, there are always some people who don't like to live in groups. Therefore, the teleportation arrays that they built themselves are not on this map." Han Fei searched for a long time. "Then where are we now?" Shu Xiaoman pointed at the 2 strings of numbers engraved on the top of the teleportation formation and said, "We are now 1,500 kilometers north, number 396 teleportation formation, which can lead to 800 kilometers north, number 1123 teleportation formation." Han Fei was stunned and thought to himself, "If you didn't tell me, I would have thought this was a representation of latitude and longitude." Han Fei glanced at the map and found that it seemed that he would be able to leave the Cloud Sea Divine Tree after passing 6 more teleportation arrays. Immediately, Han Fei hushed them. "Sorry for the trouble. Asking for votes." End of this chapter. Chapter 1179. After only 3 teleportation arrays, Han Fei had already found people coming and going. At the beginning, there weren't many. However, the further he went, the more people he met. These people or creatures were mostly hidden fishers. There were few hanging fishers, and the frequency of law enforcers was not very high. Walking along the main road, Han Fei found that the Cloud Sea Divine Tree had been mixed with so many races that some of them were you and me. There were all kinds of creatures here, especially those insects, some of which looked exactly the same and were difficult to distinguish. For example, spiders were also insects, centipedes were also insects, golden tortoise beetles were also insects, and Hercules were also insects. Of course, for some reason, golden tortoise beetles were the majority here. They came in all kinds of shapes, but pure gold was rare. There were also Hercules beetles, which were the kind of insects with all kinds of strange, big horns on their heads. The horns on the heads of these Hercules beetles were spear-shaped, pants-shaped, shovel-shaped, knife-shaped, and half-moon-shaped. Han Fei was dazzled by them, and when humans, birds, insects, or tree demons saw Han Fei, they all looked at his face in shock. Then they looked at the venerable token on his waist. Han Fei was speechless and said with a black face, "I was forced to do this." Shu Xiaoman. Han Fei's face began to change. The next moment, Zhang Xuanyu's handsome face appeared on Han Fei's face. Wow! After seeing Han Fei's new face, Shu Xiaoman couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "Although you are a little different from the humans of our Shuimu heaven, this is not bad. So, which face is the real one? I knew human beings couldn't be so ugly." Seeing Han Fei's almost angry eyes, Shu Xiaoman immediately realized something and shut up. Han Fei snorted, thinking, thank God that Zhang Xuanyu didn't come to the Shuimu heaven. Otherwise, Wu Shangshui would have killed him in less than 3 days. After all, the people of the Shuimu heaven were really good-looking. Knowing that she had said something wrong, Shu Xiaoman couldn't help but say apologetically, "Well, in fact, you were quite fierce before." "Well, yes, very fierce." Han Fei rolled his eyes, thinking, "Don't compliment me if you don't know how to." But Han Fei said solemnly, "You will eventually find how popular a man like me is in the yin-yang heaven. Forget it. I won't talk to you anymore. The reason why I use this face is to avoid trouble. I don't want to waste my time." When Han Fei walked out of the last teleportation array, he found that the surrounding temperature plummeted. When he walked out, he saw a white glacier. There were also a large number of ice jars. Han Fei saw Han and saw Yi Fei. "You." Young man nodded and said, "Because there is no land on this side of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. The area that the roots of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree can reach has become the Bone Jar Plain." It seemed like the number of living beings that had died in battle was simply too many. Shu Xiaoman said, "Actually, it's just a souvenir. There are only signs in the bone jars. Sometimes, when the ice jars break, it means that the person has finally died. Then, new bone jars will be put up, and the cycle will start again." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Where's the battlefield? Do we still need teleportation arrays?" Shu Xiaoman shook her head. "There are no teleportation arrays in the bone jar ice field. People fly there to pay homage to the heroes who have sacrificed themselves. We can fly there directly from here." With that, Shu Xiaoman was about to take Han Fei to the bone jar ice field. But when she turned her head, she found that Han Fei didn't move. Not only did he not move, but Han Fei also took out a boat. Shu Xiaoman was surprised, looking at the strangely shaped, gorgeous wind god boat. "Is this a boat?" Han Fei patted the boat and said, "Come on, don't you have a boat?" Shu Xiaoman was a little confused. "Yes, but we rarely use boats, and I've never seen such a boat. And how can we sail on the ice?" The wind god boat floated directly into the air, cut through the sky with a swish, and swept across the sky. Shu Xiaoman exclaimed, "Boat, how can a boat fly?" Han Fei frowned slightly. "That's not right. Doesn't the Shuemu heaven have floating stones? Although the Immortal Palace is also supported by the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. But doesn't the Immortal Palace need floating stones? Or is the Yin-Yang heaven special?" Han Fei said, "This is a fishing boat unique to the Yin-Yang heaven. It can be controlled and flown. My boat is quite ordinary. It can only fly more than 60,000 kilometers a day." Taking out the wind god boat, Han Fei wondered if it was time to upgrade the wind god boat. With his current attainments and arrays, he could easily make the wind god boat reach a speed of 80,000 kilometers. If he upgraded the materials and refined the wind god boat into a semi-divine weapon, then it shouldn't be a problem to double the speed. Of course, this didn't seem to make sense. Even if the wind god boat doubled its speed, it wouldn't be as fast as flying. Besides, he had to refine it into a divine weapon. Only then could he fly as fast as a shuttle. After flying out hundreds of kilometers, Han Fei looked back at the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. At that time, a heartfelt shock came from the bottom of his heart, because even at this time, he still couldn't see the top or bottom of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. While the wind god boat was galloping, one perception after another swept over him. Some law enforcers even chased him all the way, wondering what this thing was. However, when someone saw the venerable token on Han Fei, he immediately exclaimed, "Venerable token? I'm sorry." Buzz, buzz, buzz. A large group of big-winged flying insects chased the wind god boat and exclaimed, "Did the humans invent some kind of divine weapon? It looks like a boat." This boat looks so strange. Why can a boat fly?" The insects chattered for a long time, and even two ladybug-like insects landed on the wind god boat, not paying much attention to Han Fei's venerable token. Then there were two. At first, there were two ladybugs, then a red-winged demonic insect, and then a purple white-headed sparrow landed on the boat. Han Fei said, Hey, don't stand up anymore, or the boat will be crushed by you." The big beetle asked, "Human, you look a bit strange." The insect didn't look strange, but it just felt a bit different. However, in their eyes, humans all looked the same and couldn't tell them apart. The bird said, "Wait. When I came here, I heard that someone from the Yin-Yang heaven came. However, Everyone said that the person is powerful but a bit ugly. Han Fei's face darkened as he listened. Shu Xiaoman was still trying to hold back her laughter. Han Fei immediately roared, "Well, what's that? I'm in a hurry. Take your time." Then with a swish, the wind god boat disappeared. Shu Xiaoman was about to say something, but Han Fei grabbed her, and with a swish, the two of them disappeared. Shu Xiaoman had never seen the heavenly void divine walking technique. She exclaimed so fast. That's at least the speed of an intermediate explorer. Han Fei said, "Are the Zergs all talkative?" Shu Xiaoman nodded. "In a sense, a little bit. The Sky Clan is much better. They are usually aloof." As they talked, the two had crossed the Bone Jar ice field. At this time, Han Fei found that above this ice, a large number of humans, insects, tree demons, and giant beaked birds were fighting on this ice. Shu Xiaoman said, "After crossing the Bone Jar ice field, it's the land of winter. This is just an ordinary battlefield, mostly hanging fissures and hidden fissures. When you reach the level of law enforcer, you're usually in the depths of the land of winter." Han Fei saw the beak of the giant beaked bird turn on the ice and immediately dig a hole, and then a little treant dug out the thick ice. Then a bunch of creatures came out of the hole. There were sea demonic plants, sea worms, crabs, and strange fish in the shape of snowballs. Although they knew that someone was passing by in the sky, they had long been used to it and didn't pay attention to it. They just thought it was an explorer passing by. Half an hour later, Han Fei saw a huge ice wall that spanned a long distance in the distance. He knew that this was the ice wall that Shu Xiaoman had mentioned. In his perception, there were battles of various sizes going on outside the city wall. However, the intensity was not high. Most of them were battles between law enforcers, and there were no battles between explorers. Han Fei said in surprise, "Is this the level of the battle?" Shu Xiaoman said, "You can't expect there to be battles every day. Otherwise, the Shuemu heaven would have been destroyed in the war. Even strong masters need time to accumulate strength. This is just a training exercise for both sides. Occasionally, there will be a big battle, which is to consume the strength of the Shuemu heaven. They intend to slowly nibble away at our strength in this way." Swish, swish. When Han Fei and Shu Xiaoman landed on the city wall, they saw that the city wall was thousands of meters thick, like a super large ice cube. On the outside side of the city wall, there were dense arrays. It could be seen how much effort the strong masters of the Shuemu heaven had put into this ice wall. At this moment, many law enforcers were walking on the city wall. There were also creatures of various races setting up stalls here, but there were not many stalls. When Han Fei and Shu Xiaoman arrived, many people scanned them with their perception. However, although Shu Xiaoman was a heavenly talent, there were so many creatures on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree that it was impossible for everyone to know her, so no one paid attention to her. In short, the realm of ice was, in a sense, a place for training. Under normal circumstances, the number of deaths was very low. Shu Xiaoman pointed outside the ice wall and said, "Some people will cross the ice wall and go straight into the deep sea. If you want to see a real battle between strong masters, you can only see it outside. There are many special resources that can only be obtained in the outer seas." Han Fei smiled. "Do you dare to go?" Shu Xiaoman was slightly taken aback. Within 100,000 kilometers. Beyond this range, it's hard to predict. Han Fei pondered for a moment. "Why don't you wait here, and I'll go out and have a look?" Shu Xiaoman was a little surprised. "Are you in such a hurry? Do you want to experience the battle on the ice wall first?" Looking at the battle in the distance, Han Fei shook his head slightly. "Too weak. It's boring." Shu Xiaoman saw Han Fei licking his lips. For some reason, her heart skipped a beat. What does this guy want to do? Second update. Asking for votes into this chapter. Chapter 1180. Different from everyone in the Shuemu heaven, Han Fei felt something was wrong when he heard young man talk about the 4 realms of the Shuemu heaven. In the Yin-Yang heaven, human beings were actually the ones who took the initiative to attack. For example, when he was on the Scattered Stars Island, there were often battles led by strong people to kill them. However, in the Shuemu heaven, The realm of ice was guarded by ice and snow walls. The dark warport was guarded by the fearless barrier. The Sea of Flames had the wall of flames, and the whole sea seemed to have an endless trench. From the looks of it, Shuemu Sky's fighting style was more of a defensive one, just like how they would defend a city. It was not wrong to say that this was the case. In different times, different fighting routes had their own advantages, but the Shuemu Heaven had been defending for countless years. Hadn't they taken the initiative? Han Fei couldn't help asking, "Young man, have any strong masters from the Shuemu Heaven attacked the royal city?" "Huh? Attacked the royal city?" Young man was dumbfounded. Who would be stupid enough to attack the royal city? Since it was called the royal city, there must be a huge deep-sea demon guarding it. Young man shook her head repeatedly. She had never thought of this kind of thing. Han Fei grinned. Sure enough, if there was a king in the Yin-Yang Heaven, according to Shui Shinshi's character and the style of the Thug Academy, he would definitely give it a try. It was hard to say whether he could defeat the other party or not, but he would definitely fight. Besides, since most of the time, the realm of ice was only used as a training ground, didn't it mean that the outer sea rarely fought? In other words, the outer sea had never been robbed, right? Han Fei glanced at Forge the Universe. Over the years, although he had accumulated a lot of resources, he had used a lot of them. Especially when he was reincarnated, he consciously and unconsciously used a lot of resources. Han Fei immediately fixed his eyes. How far is it to the royal city? Young man didn't know what he meant and replied blankly. The royal city is in the direction of the dark warport and the Sea of Flames. Han Fei almost laughed out loud. He quickly coughed and said, "Young man, you know, I came to the Yin-Yang Heaven to undergo a tribulation and to gain experience. Now that I'm here, I can't go back after taking a look at the ice and snow walls, can I?" Young Shu said, "If it's not too far away, I'll go with you. This official has instructed me to do so." Han Fei waved his hand. "Well, I may have to go very far, more than 100,000 kilometers." Young Shu man was surprised. "That's dangerous. There are often Tao-seeking realm monsters there." Han Fei grinned. "Well, actually, I'm going to look for a Tao realm demon. Ordinary peak sea spirits are no longer enough for me to gain experience. Therefore, it is dangerous for me to go there. You stay here. I'll be back as soon as possible. I'll be gone for half a month at most." "No," Shu Xiaoman said firmly. "As long as you go out, I have to follow you. You're not familiar with Shuemu Sky at all, and you still want to go out alone for half a month? Besides, you're about to undergo tribulation, so what else do you need to train for?" "Ugh." Han Fei was dumbfounded. "I just want to experience how it feels to fight a Tao-seeking state demon." Shu Xiaoman glanced at Han Fei's venerable token and immediately took a breath. "Then I'll go too. Anyway, you have the venerable token. Once something goes wrong, the silent messenger can come very quickly." Han Fei glanced at his venerable token and quickly stuffed it into his trousers. This thing couldn't be exposed for the time being. Otherwise, he felt that Shu Xiaoman looked at the venerable token more than at him. Han Fei rolled his eyes. "Okay, you can go with me, but you have to listen to my orders." Shu Xiaoman nodded. "I won't participate in your training. Besides, I'm not an ordinary peak-level law enforcer. My spiritual beast is a lightning fish. If I have to run, I can run very fast." Hearing this, Han Fei was relieved. In his opinion, as long as he didn't encounter two advanced explorers or peak-level explorers at the same time, he would be able to run away. If he really encountered a peak-level explorer, he would call Jinger as soon as possible and then escape at full speed. Han Fei nodded. "Okay, you're right." With that, Han Fei leaped into the air and flew straight out of the sea. When Han Fei and Shu Xiaoman left the ice wall, someone was slightly surprised. "You've just arrived. Why are you going out so soon?" However, more people didn't take it seriously. As long as they didn't go far, it wouldn't be a big problem. At most, they would attract some sea spirit powerhouses. 3,000 kilometers away, in Han Fei's perception, 3 sea spirit creatures appeared. An ice flood dragon had been following them from a distance, and 2 half-mermaids were also following them secretly. Shu Xiaoman looked a little nervous. Should we kill them? Otherwise, they will call for more people and try to surround us. Han Fei responded, "No, fly slowly. Let them follow us for a while and wait for them to launch an attack." Shu Xiaoman muttered in her heart, "Wait for them to launch an attack?" There was no telling whether Han Fei was extremely confident or overly proud. This was the outer sea, not the ice wall. If something really happened, no one would immediately appear to help him. 5,000 kilometers away. In Han Fei's perception, 7 peak-level sea spirit creatures appeared, and he even heard a half-mermaid's voice transmission. "Should we do it now?" And the person who was asked said, "Don't do it. This place is too close to the ice wall. Besides, humans who dare to go out of the sea are definitely not weak. Call 2 more people and try to kill them." When they were thousands of kilometers away, Han Fei suddenly said, "They're going to attack. Follow me down." With that, Han Fei quickly descended and landed on the ice. Han Fei punched the ice and carefully looked around. Seeing that there was no one around, he quietly took out a fishing rod. With a swish, the fishing hook hooked a squid that had just entered the sea demon realm. In the distance, a half-mermaid said in surprise, "What is this guy doing?" The ice flood dragon's eyes were cold. "Did he come here just to hunt a squid in the sea demon realm?" A half-mermaid shouted, "He is definitely a peak-level law enforcer. No matter what he is doing, kill him." Swish, swish. Han Fei casually pinched the squid to death and stuffed it into Forge the Universe, smiling slightly. Shu Xiaoman asked, "How about it? How many are there in total?" Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth. "Only 9, Shu Xiaoman." Before Shu Xiaoman asked, she heard Han Fei murmur, 3, 2, 1, swish. Suddenly, Shu Xiaoman found that Han Fei disappeared. At the moment when Han Fei disappeared, a half-mermaid suddenly shouted, "Not good. This person is too fast. He doesn't look like a peak-level law enforcer. Retreat." However, just after this half-mermaid shouted, less than a second later, suddenly, there was a boom sound and a cold light suddenly appeared in the water. Then, the ice WIRM's head was chopped off with a single slash. The fastest black fish was about to use a secret technique when half of its body turned into black light. As a result, the shadow of a sledgehammer crashed down, and its head was suddenly split into pieces. Explorer. He is Explorer. The space twisted, and with 2 puffs, 2 escaping half-mermaids were directly chopped into pieces. From beginning to end, they didn't even see how Han Fei attacked. The remaining 5 half-mermaids shouted in unison, "Sea King arrives!" Bam! 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 The ice burst open, and in an instant, a huge waterman appeared, a giant shark appeared, and an octopus swept around. At the moment when Han Fei attacked, Shu Xiaoman had already rushed in Han Fei's direction. She thought, Han Fei is strong, but there are 9 sea spirit realm powerhouses on the other side, and I should be able to deal with 2. However, Shu Xiaoman had only run 100 kilometers. A roar burst out in the void. In an instant, hundreds of beast phantoms rushed on the bottom of the sea, and the ice within dozens of kilometers cracked. Puff, puff, puff. Shu Xiaoman watched the waterman collapse from a distance, and the shark's teeth were all broken. When she arrived, she saw that Han Fei was holding a total of 9 sea-swallowing seashells and a bunch of semi-divine weapons or low-quality divine weapons, which were thrown on the ground like garbage. And Han Fei was muttering, "Not rich. The Sea Clan in the realm of ice is a bit poor." Gulp. Shu Xiaoman swallowed and looked at Han Fei in shock, as if there were 10,000 iron-head fish crashing in her heart. "I haven't even run yet, and your battle is already over? Also, you're holding 9 sea-swallowing seashells, and you claim to be poor?" Han Fei shook his head and rummaged through their sea-swallowing seashells in disdain. After a dozen seconds or so, Han Fei said with a dark expression, "I think, according to my confirmation, although the sea race in the realm of ice may be a little poor, they are not as good as the sea race in the realm of ice. However, judging from the proportion of resources they obtained, most of them were spirit fruits and profound stones. This means that there are a lot of resources outside the realm of frost." Young man Shu was stunned. "Aren't you here to gain experience?" Shu Xiaoman pointed to the semi-divine weapons and low-quality divine weapons on the ground. These are low-quality divine weapons. Can you just leave it here? Han Fei nodded and picked up the weapons on the ground. He said righteously, "Isn't this an experience for me? Plundering the resources of the sea race to replenish the lives of tens of thousands of people. Isn't that right?" But Shu Xiaoman choked and was rendered speechless by Han Fei. Why does it sound so reasonable? But in her heart, for some reason, she always felt that Han Fei was here to rob them. But no, Shu Xiaoman pointed to the sea demons. What about them? 9 sea spirit realm experts died at once. There will definitely be Tao-seeking state demons coming to check. What should we do now? Return to the ice wall? Han Fei immediately tilted his head and looked at Shu Xiaoman, thinking, why is this girl so stubborn? If I didn't want to be discovered, I would have taken these sea demons away. I must have kept them for a reason. Han Fei said, don't panic. At this critical moment, the only thing we have to do is wait. Shu Xiaoman immediately took a breath and exclaimed, are you really going to wait for a Tao-seeking state demon? The third update. Please vote. The update was delayed by an hour today, mainly because I was too busy. I didn't even have a place to set up my computer. Actually, the plot progresses very quickly. Don't panic. The exciting plot will come quickly. Well, it's fine if I keep feeling good. There are ups and downs, flat scenes, climaxes, twists, and so on. Let's not talk about this anymore. The author is going to get hit with a brick. Because I'm clean, my hands that right have to carry a brick. In the end, I still have to bear everything. Laughing emoji. End of this chapter. Chapter 1181. Inside the concealment array. Han Fei said, well, young man, if I have too many resources on me, is there any way that I can sell them quickly without setting up a stall? Young man said, don't you want to give back to thousands of creatures? Han Fei was annoyed. If I give back to them, they should give back to me, right? I actually have very low requirements. It doesn't matter if I suffer some losses. Young man Shu felt that she had seen through Han Fei's mind. This guy was out to rob. But now, young man Shu was shocked by Han Fei's combat efficiency. It was too fast. Just now, there were 9 sea spirit realm powerhouses. Ordinary law enforcers would be lucky if they could escape. However, in Han Fei's hands, the situation was reversed. At this point, young man Shu probably knew why she lost. And she probably knew why Han Fei dared to go deep into the outer sea of the realm of ice alone. Young man Shu said leisurely, if, in fact, you are not afraid of suffering losses, you can have 2 ways. One is the market of our human race, which is very lively. The other is to directly exchange with Venerable Snow. It's just that the things in Venerable Snow's hands are not affordable for ordinary people. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Oh, really? Han Fei thought, there are only 2 reasons why I can't afford it. Either the quality is not up to standard, or the quantity is not up to standard. I don't belong to the category of people who can't afford it. It's not a big deal to rob more. That's what I used to do. Under the concealment of the array, Han Fei waited for a full hour. In addition to the sea spirit realm creatures passing by, most of the sea demons exclaimed that something had happened here. However, none of the Tao-seeking realm monsters appeared. Han Fei was a little impatient. Is the royal city so capricious? A sea spirit realm creature was nothing in their eyes? They don't even send someone to check on us? Young man Shu took a breath and said, maybe this place is too close to the ice and snow city wall. Why didn't you say so earlier? You made me wait for a long time. Immediately, Han Fei removed the concealment array and the breath concealing array and said, let's go to the outer sea. Young man Shu frowned and reminded him, Han Fei, I know you are very strong. However, it was impossible for 9 sea spirits to die at the same time without anyone noticing. There will definitely be people guessing that an explorer has taken action on the ice wall. Han Fei glanced at her silently. Why don't you go back? I like to act alone. You're too slow. Young man Shu felt that he was despised. He must have been despised. Young man shook her head firmly. No, I want to follow you. Han Fei was speechless. The people of the Shuemu heaven are a bit simple. How could he be so stupid? Han Fei immediately said, "Okay, but no matter what happens in the future, listen to me." Shu Xiaoman nodded and thought to herself, "You, a top genius of the Yin-Yang heaven, aren't afraid. I can't lose face for the Shuemu heaven." The two of them set off again. Because they were all peak law enforcers, the sea folk didn't notice them at all. About 50,000 kilometers away from the ice city wall, Han Fei discovered that there were mines and spiritual fruits under the ice outside the domain of ice. There were also a lot of creatures here. However, the creatures here usually had a special characteristic. Except for some special species, most of them were snails and crustaceans. Besides, their colors were mostly ice blue and white, and there were basically sharp blades or spikes on their bodies. Was it because they wanted to break the ice? That's why they evolved like this. After several times, young man Shu said, "Han Fei, I found spiritual fruits." Han Fei was unmoved. "Don't worry about it." Young man Shu asked, "You don't want spiritual fruits? We just need to spend a little time to get them." Han Fei curled the corner of his mouth slightly. A few spiritual fruits are not worth wasting time. By the way, which part of the domain of ice is remote? Is it because the creatures of the Shuemu heaven don't go there often? Young man Shu pointed to the west. Go west, because the west of the domain of ice is connected to the Sea of Flames. So the temperature and environment there are better. However, it's usually more dangerous there. Now, young man Shu no longer resisted Han Fei's questions. She didn't think that Han Fei was the kind of person who would risk his life for no reason. Han Fei said, "Let's go west." An hour later, young man Shu saw Han Fei slow down. She sensed that there were a lot of sea spirit realm creatures. Besides, these sea spirit realm creatures were relatively concentrated. Although there were no peak-level sea spirits, there were 3 sea spirit realm creatures within 1,000 kilometers, which could only mean that this place was getting more and more dangerous. Suddenly, one of the crabs suddenly raised its eyes. Swish! In the blink of an eye, Han Fei disappeared with a swish. Without even breaking the ice, he appeared directly in front of the cave. Crack! In young man Shu's perception, Han Fei stepped on a breath-concealing array. Immediately afterward, the crab suddenly lay on the ground and was cut in half by a knife. Han Fei said to her via voice transmission, "Your soul power is too weak. Don't perceive anything more than 300 kilometers away. If you're discovered and the other party really calls for help, it will be too late no matter how fast I am." Young man Shu. Han Fei directly emptied the crab's hole, dug out 3 spiritual fruits, and grabbed a sea-swallowing seashell. Then, he stuffed the whole crab into Forge the Universe. Gulp! Shu Xiaoman swallowed her saliva. She really didn't dare to imagine what she would do if she encountered an opponent like Han Fei on the battlefield. She had a rough judgment. Under Han Fei's sneak attack, within a range of 500 kilometers, she might not even be able to use her law enforcement ability before she was obliterated by Han Fei. What terrified young man the most was that Han Fei's mastery of space power allowed him to ignore the ice and appear directly under the ice, silently. Those sea spirit realm creatures probably couldn't imagine it at all. Han Fei didn't come up but set up a breath-concealing array and a stealth array on himself, and then directly rushed to 2 places inside. Young man Shu didn't dare to perceive at will, so she focused her perception directly on Han Fei. Puff! Puff! In less than 10 minutes, 3 sea spirit realm sea demons died one after another before they could even react. When Han Fei reappeared on the wind god boat, he said lightly, "These few are relatively weak. I set up a stealth array, and breath-concealing array on the boat. You act according to the circumstances. I'm not on the boat." If this was in the 10,000 Demon Valley, this kind of situation wouldn't normally occur. And there wouldn't be sea spirit realm creatures cultivating within 100,000 kilometers of the human settlement area. Therefore, Han Fei's confidence was greatly boosted at this moment. As long as he was fast enough, he could rob them before they could react. In just an hour, Han Fei quietly killed 27 sea spirit realm sea demons. Among them, as many as 6 were at the peak of the sea spirit realm. At this moment, Han Fei was looting the undersea cave of a half-mermaid. From this person's sea-swallowing seashell, he found more than 300 spiritual fruits, more than 10,000 kilograms of spirit-awakening fluid, a mid-quality divine weapon, 6 low-quality divine weapons, and several pieces of extremely high-quality minerals. TSK, it's not as fast as robbing. Han Fei sighed with emotion. Suddenly, in his perception, a half-mermaid in a dark blue battle suit tore the void more than 800 kilometers away. And it was a cave that Han Fei had just looted. Seeing this scene, Han Fei knew that a strong master finally couldn't sit still. So many Sea Spirit Realm sea demons had been killed in a row. The other party couldn't be indifferent. Han Fei immediately said to Young Man, "There's a Tao-seeking state sea demon. Don't do anything. Hold your breath and don't move." Young Man's heart trembled. Is a Tao-seeking state sea demon finally here? In Young Man's view, Han Fei's robbing speed was too fast. If there were hundreds of freakishly strong masters like Han Fei in the Shuimu heaven, the Sea Clan would never be so unscrupulous. As Han Fei said, Young Man didn't dare to move at all. No matter how strong she was, she couldn't resist a Tao-seeking state sea demon. But Han Fei didn't seem to see it. When the Tao-seeking state sea demon appeared, Han Fei knew that he didn't have much time left on this robbery trip. However, he didn't panic at all. Just now, he sent a voice transmission to Young Man just to test whether the Tao-seeking state sea demon could perceive the Tao. If it was a peak-level Tao-seeking state sea demon, it could definitely feel it. However, the other party didn't, which meant that the other party's perception was not strong enough to understand what was happening thousands of kilometers away in an instant. In this case, Han Fei was naturally relieved. Even if the other party was an advanced explorer, even if he couldn't beat him, he could still escape easily. Han Fei pretended not to notice it at all, put away the things, and slightly opened his breath, concealing array and stealth array. In an instant, the half-mermaid suddenly looked in Han Fei's direction. "Umph, I finally found you." "Huh, a peak-level law enforcer?" The Tao-seeking state sea demon's eyes narrowed. Were those sea spirit state sea demons all killed by this peak-level law enforcer? If he could kill sea spirit state sea demons at such a high frequency, how could he be a peak-level law enforcer? But after sensing again, he confirmed that there was indeed only Han Fei here. Besides, there was still blood flowing in that cave. It was definitely him, a top human heavenly talent. Humph, don't even think about leaving. The man tore the void and disappeared more than 900 kilometers away. At the moment when the Tao-seeking state sea demon tore the void, Han Fei sneered. "You dare to come here alone? Are you here to deliver a package?" Rip. The void was suddenly torn apart, and Han Fei pretended to be shocked and ran away. The half-mermaid yelled, "Do you think you can run away?" At the speed of 100 kilometers per step, the half-mermaid appeared in front of Han Fei and stabbed a harpoon at him. But the next moment, Han Fei suddenly turned around and grinned. "You're here?" Chapter 1182. Han Fei's smile startled the Tao-seeking state demon. What did he mean? His first reaction was that there was an ambush here, so he hurriedly retreated. But at the moment when the clone sensed the surroundings, he heard an earth-shattering roar. At that moment, hundreds of beasts rushed at him and roared. Humph! The half-mermaid felt as if his brain was about to explode. He immediately grunted and tasted something sweet in his throat. When he finally came back to his senses, he suddenly felt a life-and-death crisis. Not only was someone competing with him for control of his body, but he also felt that his vitality was being devoured crazily. He could even feel that his vitality was being devoured at a crazy rate. He felt that his skin was becoming more compact and his strength was being weakened. Han Fei looked calm. This time, he was waiting for a Tao-seeking state demon to test his sky-stealing technique. The 6th level of the void fishing art was called the sky-stealing technique, formerly known as the luck-stealing technique. From the name alone, the luck-stealing technique might be easier to understand. But when he used the sky-stealing technique, Han Fei knew how domineering and extremely powerful technique could be. The so-called sky-stealing technique was not really stealing the heavenly Tao. Instead, it was to steal other people's luck, to steal other people's heavenly techniques and fate. It could be understood as stealing other people's fate. Different from the law of time could control time in a small range, speeding up or slowing it down. The strong could make the time in the area pass crazily and take people's lives. But the sky-stealing technique was different. It directly stole other people's life potential. The old turtle said leisurely, "Your technique is not weak, but it cannot transform much vitality. Besides, your root bone is extremely young, so this technique is of little use to you. Even if you suck it dry, I'm afraid it won't increase your lifespan by 10 years. This is related to your age." This was the first time that Han Fei had used the sky-swallowing technique on a Tao-seeking state demon. He could control souls through the void lines before, and now he could devour vitality through the void lines. Besides, the void lines didn't seem to be so interested in soul treasures anymore. Han Fei replied, "So, this technique is useless against me?" The old turtle said, "It's still useful. Maybe after 1,000 years, when your bones have aged, you can use this technique to keep your bones young. Take the venerable realm, for example. Others might have a lifespan of 10,000 years, but with this technique, you might be able to extend your lifespan to 20,000 years or even longer." Han Fei was shocked. In that case, the sky-stealing technique is definitely a divine technique. Other people need fate fruits to sustain their lives, so I can just steal from others. The old turtle cackled. "However, at that time, I'm afraid you'll be treated as a devil." Han Fei curled his lips. "I don't care about demons at all. The main reason is that my objective has never been the Exalt realm, and it's the King realm instead. At that time, living for a few tens of thousands of years would be extremely easy." Therefore, Han Fei didn't feel much about the heaven-stealing art. He didn't want to devour anyone's vitality at this moment. He'd better keep the heaven-stealing art as a trump card. Well then, the Tao-seeking realm demon was shocked. He wanted to escape, but he couldn't. He saw a sword light that could tear the heavens and the earth open suddenly. Puff! Even to his death, the half-mermaid didn't know who killed him. He didn't believe that a peak-level law enforcer could be so strong. Unfortunately, he couldn't see it. Sitting on the wind god boat, Shu Xiaoman watched this scene in shock. Her mouth opened and her eyes widened. A Tao-seeking realm powerhouse died, just like that? Didn't he just come out? Shu Xiaoman, who had witnessed the whole process, didn't know how to describe such a battle. The Tao-seeking realm demon, after tearing the void, only had time to take one step and strike with his spear. Then, he was inexplicably slashed by Han Fei's sword. Who wouldn't be horrified by this? Not to mention whether the half-mermaid had exerted his full strength or not. Not to mention the battlesuit on his body, or even his physique. Even if he shot an arrow with all his strength, he wouldn't be able to seriously injure him. However, in Han Fei's hands, the battlesuit was at least at the level of a divine weapon and the super strong physique of a Tao-seeking realm cultivator, but he was slashed to death like a piece of paper. At this moment, Shu Xiaoman felt that she had underestimated Han Fei's strength. The Tao-seeking realm and the Sea Spirit realm were simply two different levels. Normally, a peak-level law enforcer, no matter how talented he was, could at most be comparable to a powerhouse who had just entered the Tao-seeking realm. But Han Fei's strength was completely beyond her understanding of power. Han Fei directly took out the sun-moon shell of this Tao-seeking realm half-mermaid. Yes, they all use sea-swallowing seashells. This guy used the sun-moon shell. However, before Han Fei could check it, he heard a voice in his heart. "Boy, why don't you run away? I feel the smell of a peak-level Tao-seeking realm demon." Han Fei was taken aback. A peak-level Tao-seeking realm demon appeared? Swish! Han Fei appeared directly on the wind god boat, put away the wind god boat, and grabbed Shu Xiaoman, who was in a daze. Let's go. Shu Xiaoman." Han Fei made up his mind. When he went back this time, he wouldn't take this burden with him. If Shu Xiaoman was not there, with his own ability, he could turn into a siren and go around again, and he would definitely be able to find a lot. However, Han Fei had only run for half an hour when the old turtle reminded him, "Go into the void." Someone is chasing us. Hum. Han Fei activated the phantom glass wings and the heaven void divine walking technique, and Shu Xiaoman only felt that there was a flash of light in front of her. At the next moment, before Shu Xiaoman realized what was going on, with a swish, her eyes had turned into a dark void. Shu Xiaoman was shocked. Can a law enforcer tear the void? Han Fei replied, No, but when I'm fast enough, I can still rush in. More than 5,000 kilometers away, the void trembled, and a strong man-fish-like expert broke out of the void. If Han Fei saw this person, he would definitely recognize him. Isn't this an azure sea blue demon? In the 10,000 Demon Valley, it was said that it was extremely difficult for azure sea blue demons to cultivate to a high level. If Han Fei saw this person, he might have other ideas about the realm of ice. Humph! You want to run after killing my people? If you want to run, I'll wait for you at the Ice City wall. A long conch appeared in the azure sea blue demon's hand, and there was a gurgling sound. The next moment, he tore the void again. It was not that he didn't want to chase and fight in the void, but that he was afraid of being ambushed. Han Fei ran all the way and shouted, I told you not to follow me. Otherwise, it would be much more convenient for me to run alone. Shu Xiaoman gritted her teeth. You are a guest from the Yinyang heaven. I told you to follow me. Han Fei was speechless. After about half an hour, the old turtle suddenly said, You can't go back. Someone is blocking your way. Hum. Seeing that Han Fei suddenly changed directions, Shu Xiaoman wondered, This is not the way to the Ice City wall, is it? Han Fei said, The way is blocked. Let's go to the Sea of Flames. Relying on the map of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree in his mind, Han Fei changed directions and went directly in the direction of the Sea of Flames. As for the Ice City wall, Han Fei wasn't worried at all. Since it had been erected there for thousands of years, it couldn't be broken through by a few big demons at the peak level of the Tao-seeking state. Otherwise, the realm of ice would have been broken through. Outside, within 10,000 kilometers of the Ice City wall, 7 or 8 experts at the peak level of the Tao-seeking state came. A half-mermaid asked gloomily, Green Demon, where is he? The azure sea blue demon frowned and said, He ran in the direction of the Ice City wall. He should be here soon. Someone looked back at the direction of the Ice City wall. This place is too close to the Ice City wall. We can't stay for long. Someone roared, The Ice City wall hasn't had a large-scale war for a long time. The Shuemu heaven is provoking us. They slaughtered as many as 50 sea spirit state experts at once. We must teach them a lesson. Beep, beep. A loud horn suddenly sounded on the Ice City wall. A peak-level explorer shouted, Everyone, prepare for battle. Chirp, chirp, clatter, clatter, hum, hum. The creatures who had set up stalls on the city wall immediately packed up and stood on the city wall. The sky was occupied by the Sky Clan and the Insect Clan in an instant. The little Trent's roots were stuck on the city wall, and some were hanging on the city wall. Their bodies were parallel to the ground. Several peak-level explorers crossed the city wall and stood in midair. Someone roared, Does the Sea Clan want to start a war? Someone was puzzled. Huh, there are no more Sea Clan members coming. There are only a few big demons at the peak level of the Tao-seeking state. They seem to be blocking the way. Someone pondered and said, How many people have gone to the outer sea recently? Humph, no matter what, we'll drive them away when everyone is here. At this moment, someone from the Sea Clan roared, You from the Shumu heaven, don't you know what you've done? You sent people to plunder the outer sea and slaughter the sea spirit state experts of the Sea Clan. This matter is not over. On the Shuemu heaven side, many creatures were dumbfounded. Since when did we slaughter the Sea Clan? We didn't even send people out. How could we slaughter them? A big bird said telepathically, Did an expert pass by the outer sea and slaughter a nest of sea demons? A tree demon shook its branches and leaves. Those who dare to slaughter people in the outer sea must at least be peak-level explorers. Once we're surrounded, we'll suffer a great loss. A bug buzzed. Is it possible that a venerable was passing by? Did he pinch some people to death? Someone was speechless. Are you stupid? If it was really a venerable, would these people dare to chase us? The battlefield of a venerable is never the realm of ice. Someone roared. In any case, wait for a moment and drive them away. While the ice city wall was preparing for war, Han Fei was quarreling with the big turtle. The big turtle said, "Idiot, there aren't many experts in this damn place. Now that those people are going to stop you, can't you go and raid their homes?" Han Fei said, "You damn turtle, I can tell that you're up to no good. I don't believe that the great realm of frost doesn't have anyone guarding its headquarters. Old turtle, do you want me to die? Then you can use this as a pretext to reappear and try to seize my soul." The old turtle scolded angrily, "You have this gourd. Are you afraid that I will attack you? You brat, sometimes you're brave, but sometimes you're cowardly to death." Han Fei scoffed, "You stupid turtle, you are timid. Your whole family is timid. Huh, let me remind you, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit." After quarreling with the big turtle for a while, Han Fei thought quickly. In fact, it didn't seem impossible. However, he had a burden with him. He didn't want what happened to Lin Meow Meow to happen again. Besides, if he really wanted to raid a Tao-seeking realm monster, he should at least wait until he became an explorer. If he went now, the old turtle must be up to no good. And the old turtle's eyes flickered. This human is too greedy. Why isn't he greedy now? He's not tempted by such a good opportunity. Has he really seen through me? The old turtle raised his head, glanced at the demon purification pot, and was horrified. If he didn't find a way to escape from Han Fei's body now, when this kid really became an explorer, his strength would probably double. At that time, it would be even more difficult for him to escape. Han Fei didn't panic. This was just the first day he came to the Waterwood Heaven. He had 3 years to bring disaster to this place. He was not in a hurry. Han Fei turned his head and asked, "What's noteworthy about the Sea of Flames?" Shu Xiaoman was stunned and said blankly, "The Sea of Flames is similar to the realm of ice. However, the Wall of Flames and the Sea of Flames is only a means to screen the strong. If you want to pass through the Wall of Flames, you have to be at least a peak-level hidden fisher. Therefore, the Wall of Flames is close to the extreme battlefield. There are battles all year round, and both the human race and the sea race are guarded by venerables." Han Fei was surprised. "Venerables guarded all year round?" Shu Xiaoman responded, "Venerables generally don't take action. To be more precise, the extreme battlefield is more like a life-and-death arena. Explorers have their own battles, and law enforcers have their own battles. It's a strategic place that the sea race intends to continuously consume the combat power of the Waterwood Heaven." Han Fei's eyes lit up again. "Why didn't you say so earlier? Do they carry resources with them?" Shu Xiaoman shrank her head and looked at Han Fei in astonishment. "What do you want now?" Chapter 1183. Han Fei's speed was so fast that Shu Xiaoman found it terrifying. For the first time, she felt that speed was so important in the same realm. After running for more than an hour, Han Fei didn't know how far he had run. According to Han Fei's own estimation, he had flown more than 200,000 kilometers at full speed. He didn't even dare to think about this speed when he was still a hidden fisher. He could run so far in an hour. Therefore, the Wind God boat was no longer of much use. Of course, he was only a law enforcer at the moment, and he just rushed into the void with his speed. Otherwise, with the explorer's knowledge of tearing space, he would be faster. On the sea, where there was no ice, a one-horned red shark was biting the corpse of an unknown creature. All of a sudden, a sword ray appeared out of thin air. With a puff, the shark, which was already at the early stage of the sea spirit realm, was split in half. From the beginning to the end, the big shark didn't know who it had offended while eating a meal. How did it end up being hacked to death? From the void crack, Han Fei and Shu Xiaoman walked out. Shu Xiaoman looked at the shark that was hacked to death by Han Fei in astonishment and said in shock, "How do you know there are sea creatures outside?" Han Fei said leisurely, "Would you believe me if I said I just felt it?" Shu Xiaoman immediately shook her head. "The sea is so big. Do you think you can kill sea creatures? Then why don't you just split the sea every day?" Han Fei unhurriedly put the shark into Forge the Universe and said, "Don't make a fuss. It's just a shark that has just broken through to the sea spirit realm." The The temperature here is indeed a bit high. I guess we should be there after a while. This time, Han Fei took out the wind god boat. He did this because he didn't want to go to the Sea of Flames in a hurry. Besides, this was the junction between the realm of ice and the Sea of Flames. He wanted to see if there were any sea demons' nests nearby. On the wind god boat, Han Fei lay on the special sofa and said lazily, "Tell me more about the Sea of Flames. Did they come here just to fight? Didn't they even bring their sea-swallowing seashells?" Shu Xiaoman said with a dark face, "Of course I will, but there won't be many good things inside. Think about it. They must have used all that good stuff and felt that they were very powerful. That's why they went to the Sea of Flames to ask for battle. It was impossible for everyone to bring a whole body full of treasures to fight, right? If he died, wouldn't he be giving it to someone else for nothing? So if there's really something good, I'll definitely use it immediately." Han Fei frowned. That makes sense. If that's the case, there's not much meaning in just fighting. However, Shu Xiaoman added, "However, there are many special marine creatures fighting fiercely in the Sea of Flames, and the half-mermaids only account for a small part of them." Han Fei wondered why. Shu Xiaoman explained, "Although half-mermaids can resist high-intensity flames, they are not very adapted to it. Except for a few half-mermaids who specialized in this, the Sea of Flames had restrictions on their abilities. It's the same for us human manipulators and tree demons. They usually don't want to go to the Sea of Fire." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "Who's going?" Shu Xiaoman nodded. "The Insect Clan and the Sky Clan of the Fire attribute. As for the Sea Demons, most of them are extremely heat-resistant or have compatible attributes, so they like to go to the Sea of Fire." Han Fei took a breath and said, "Doesn't that mean that all the people living there are monsters fighting monsters? There aren't many humans, right?" Shu Xiaoman nodded. "The Insect Clan is not a monster. Most of the Insect Clan creatures are very cute." Han Fei curled his lips. He really couldn't associate the Insect Clan with cuteness. Shu Xiaoman hurriedly said, "Han Fei, don't be racist. The Insect Queen is guarding the Sea of Fire. Be careful not to be heard by the Insect Queen and leave a bad impression." Puff! Han Fei immediately spurted out. He said in surprise, "The Insect Queen? Is the Insect Queen still there?" Han Fei thought to himself, "If I remember correctly, when I first came to the Shumu Heaven, I seem to have heard some children talk about the Insect Queen. Even if she is not a king, she should at least be at the peak of the venerable realm, right?" Shu Xiaoman waved her hand. "No, the Insect Queen is just a nickname. There are no obstacles for the growth of the Insect Clan before they reach the King realm. They all develop into the role of the Insect Queen. There are 28 insect venerables in the Shuemu Heaven. Except for one Insect King, the rest are all Insect Queens." Han Fei was stunned. He took a deep breath and said, "There are so many venerables in the Insect Clan? Why didn't he know about the Insect Clan before? It's a bit fierce. The Shuemu Heaven has a total of 72 venerables, not including Jing Air. One Insect Clan accounts for 28 venerables. In other words, the Insect Clan is the race with the most venerables in the Shuemu Heaven. The number of venerables crushes the human race, the Sky Clan, and the Tree Demons." While controlling the Wind God boat to fly to the Sea of Fire, Han Fei asked, "How many Insect Queens are there in the Sea of Fire?" Shu Xiaoman said, "No more than 5. They're all around the fire tree and rotate once a year." Han Fei wondered, "What about the other Insect Queens? Are they all in the Dark War Port?" Shu Xiaoman shook her head. "No, a small half of them are in the Dark War Port, and most of them are in the whole sea in the south." Han Fei frowned and said, "Didn't you say that the whole sea is a place for ordinary creatures to train? Why are there so many venerables crowded in the whole sea?" Shu Xiaoman also sighed slightly and said, "That's a burst weapon. The Insect Clan is the strongest race in the Shuemu Heaven. The venerables are only responsible for the crazy soldiers." Wait a minute. Let me ask you, what is a soldier explosion?" Shu Xiaoman nodded and hurriedly explained, "Well, you are not from the Shuemu Heaven, so you may be a little surprised to hear it. The Insect Queen can devour energy and give birth to all kinds of low-level insects. She can also pay a great price to directly give birth to peak-level law enforcers. It is said that the strongest insect queen can give birth to more than 300 hanging fisher or 50 hidden fisher insects a day, and no more than 5 law enforcers. If it takes time, some insect queens will spend nearly half a year or even longer to give birth to a law enforcer insect with high potential. Wow, Han Fei was stunned. That's F***king outrageous. What kind of race is this? He had risked his life several times before he became a hanging fisher. However, an insect queen could give birth to 300 insects a day. How could there be such an unreasonable race in this world? So, this is what a soldier explosion is. F***ck. If it were in Yin heaven, it would only take 3 to 5 years for these insect queens to blow up the 10,000 Demon Valley. It was simply terrifying. Gulp. Han Fei swallowed and glanced around. Regardless of whether the insect queen noticed him or not, he said directly, "The insect clan is good." Puff. Shu Xiaoman smiled and said, "Actually, it's not that exaggerated. The insect clan occupies the whole sea mainly to train their soldiers. Although the insect race reproduced very quickly, just like the other races, they also needed to go through training. For example, although the strongest insect queen can give birth to 300 hanging fisher insects a day, it's not bad if 1/5 of them can really survive to the hidden fisher realm. At most, only 4 or 5 can survive the hidden fisher realm and grow to the law enforcer realm. However, the remaining few bugs are all true powerhouses, and they have all grown up through experience." Shu Xiaoman talked about the growth and history of the insect clan, but Han Fei felt that there was a duck quacking in his ear. From the beginning to the end, he understood that the insect queen was very good at giving birth. If it weren't for the fact that explorers needed to go through a tribulation, the insect queen would directly give birth to explorer-level insects. One day later, Han Fei and the others completely entered the Sea of Flames. The so-called Sea of Flames, whether in the sky or in the sea, was really burning red. Have you ever seen the sea burning? Han Fei saw it. In Han Fei's perception, there were undulating mountains here and magma surging in the belly. But this was not the origin of the name Sea of Flames. The Sea of Flames actually originated from a big tree. That big tree was naturally not as tall as the Cloud Sea Divine Tree, nor could it cover such a large area. In contrast, the size of that tree might only be 1% of the size of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. But even so, it was already not small. Han Fei was puzzled. Why was there a tree here? Wasn't the Cloud Sea Divine Tree afraid of heat? There were flames floating in the air. The temperature here had risen to a terrifying level, probably no less than the temperature of magma. And Han Fei had just entered the Sea of Flames. Shu Xiaoman's face was solemn at the moment. If we want to enter the Sea of Flames from the outside, we need to break through the wall of flames in one fell swoop. The Sea Clan Venerable won't take action. This is the tacit understanding between the Shuemu Heaven and the Sea Clan. Once the Sea Clan Venerable takes action, the Insect Queen will also take action. Han Fei frowned. What about the Sea Clan at the peak level of the Tao seeking state? Shu Xiaoman took a breath and said, "Maybe. So, we need to find a relatively weak place and rush over. After all, the peak level of the Tao seeking state can't cross the void like the Venerable." Shu Xiaoman looked solemn, although she felt that Han Fei should be able to break through the wall of flames. But who could say for sure? He had to be prepared for a fight. Han Fei's first thought was to ask the old turtle. However, on second thought, what if this old turtle cheated me? Swish! With a thought, Little Black and Little White appeared. Shu Xiaoman was puzzled. Is this the legendary spirit swallowing fish? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Do spirit swallowing fish need legends? Shu Xiaoman shook her head. Oh no, I know there's such creatures, but in this sea area, spirit swallowing fish are rarely seen, because it's difficult for them to survive here. Han Fei nodded. Oh, yes, spirit swallowing fish are indeed very weak. I usually only let my daughter find the way. Under Shu Xiaoman's puzzled gaze, Han Fei immediately touched Little White's head and said, "Daughter, feel it. Which side is the least dangerous?" Little White circled several times before flying to Han Fei's cheek. Dad, it's all dangerous. Shu Xiaoman's eyes widened. The book doesn't say that spirit-swallowing fish can talk. And this spirit-swallowing fish can call me Dad? Han Fei said. Then where is the least dangerous? Little White glanced at a 30-degree angle to Han Fei's left. There. Okay, go back first. Dad will let you out to play later. Shu Xiaoman was stunned. That's it? Han Fei grinned. My daughter's words are always true. Chapter 1184. As a member of the Waterwood Heaven, Shu Xiaoman knew she had to guard the Cloud Sea Divine Tree since she was a child. She never thought that she could actually run amok in the outer sea like Han Fei. At this moment, the two of them entered the void crack again. After about half an hour, Han Fei found a large number of creatures at the peak level of the Sea Demon Realm and even at the Sea Spirit Realm. It could be seen that the other side of the flame wall was extremely rich in resources. Unfortunately, they couldn't fight here. Otherwise, how could the other party's venerable just sit by and do nothing? After rushing forward for another 100 minutes, Han Fei passed by a Tao-seeking state demon and a serpent floating in the water. He didn't know whether it was cultivating or doing something else. They were only 1,000 kilometers apart. When Han Fei passed by the serpent suddenly opened its eyes and whipped the void with its tail. Oh, Han Fei's face changed slightly. F***CK. How could I be discovered? Beast King technique. Han Fei directly turned into a Sky Survey Golden Eagle, grabbed Shu Xiaoman, and began to rush at full speed. His speed suddenly increased by nearly 5 times. Shu Xiaoman was dumbfounded again. Did Han Fei become a member of the Sky Clan? And his speed was so much faster all of a sudden? Shu Xiaoman was shocked to find that she had been shocked by Han Fei today. Every time, she felt that she had already known the limit of Han Fei's strength. However, every time, Han Fei could break her perception. Chilla. Han Fei, who was rushing forward, suddenly saw 2 rays of light appearing almost at the same time in the boundless darkness. Subconsciously, Han Fei calculated with his fingers and found that the light in front of him on the left was not dangerous. A voice echoed in the void. Venerable, you're not allowed to interfere with the junior's business. There's something wrong with this Sky Survey Golden Eagle. How can a peak-level law enforcer enter the void? The voice on the other side said, Even so, it's not up to you, Venerable. Han Fei ran as fast as he could at that moment. He was really bold to rush under the nose of the Sea Clan's Venerable. He was ready to send a message to Jing, at any time. Once the other party desperately attacked him, could Jing arrive in time? Nevertheless, the Sea Tribe's Venerable One did not make a move. Instead, he closed the spatial crack. Following that, beams of light appeared. They were all Tao-seeking realm demons of the Ocean Clan. Han Fei calculated. At this moment, he could see 17 cracks. This did not include the Tao-seeking great demons in the distance. Swish, swish, swish. In the dark void, Han Fei roared, "Hold on tight." Like an arrow of light, Han Fei stared at the space crack ahead and sprinted out crazily. Some peak-level explorers were even faster than Han Fei and tried to intercept him. Chirp! In Han Fei's eyes, an array condensed, and with a swish, Han Fei disappeared. Han Fei's previous invisibility array and breath concealment technique weren't good, but he had learned breath concealment from Tiger King for a while. After all, cats were naturally good at this. In terms of aura concealment, he was not the least bit inferior to human powerhouses. Therefore, Han Fei's performance at this moment stunned the peak-level Tao-seeking cultivator. Do you think this will work? Devour. In the void, a terrifying suction force suddenly burst out, which should be the opponent's law enforcer. If it was the opponent's law enforcer, it should be invisible and his strength would only soar. At this moment, even if Han Fei was invisible, it would be useless. After all, the art of devouring didn't care whether he was invisible or not. However, Han Fei grinned. I know the art of devouring too. Swallow. After 2 seconds, Han Fei finally saw the full appearance of the Tao-seeking state demon. which turned out to be a shrimp soldier. However, different from ordinary shrimp soldiers, this one seemed to be cooked. Seeing that the opponent's spear couldn't reach him, Han Fei twisted his body and suddenly disappeared. Huh? The shrimp soldier shouted, "This sky survey golden eagle knows the secret technique of space." Way past the shrimp soldier, Han Fei grinned. Speed. Hum. One speed array after another was put onto him, and Han Fei's speed increased a bit. Seeing that the other demons at the peak level of the Dao-seeking state couldn't catch up, Han Fei laughed. "I'm a peak-level law enforcer. You see, clan people are so shameless to bully me." "Nonsense. What kind of peak-level law enforcer can be so fast? You're a high-level explorer." A purple ribbon fish that looked like a sharp, long knife actually cast a secret technique, turned into a line, and rushed at Han Fei. But then, the space trembled, and Han Fei twisted his body and flashed again. Han Fei sneered. In terms of escaping, the star teleportation technique could be said to be the strongest escape technique he had seen so far. Even if he could defeat the heavenly talents of the big clans before, he generally wouldn't attack the Yi family because he couldn't catch them at all. When he was in the 100,000 mountains, even though he was stronger than the sky-swimming falcon, it took him more than half a year to catch the sky-swimming falcon. This was the power of the star teleportation technique. 10 seconds passed in an instant, and some venerables of the Sea clan immediately found that something was wrong. Several venerables glanced at Han Fei and were shocked to find that there seemed to be a big problem with this Sky Survey Golden Eagle. The eagle was really a peak-level law enforcer, but its speed was too fast at that moment. Some venerables of the Sea clan realized that this might be the heavenly talent of the Shamu heaven. Rip! A claw pierced into the void, trying to scratch Han Fei to death. Han Fei suddenly felt a chill in his heart and immediately activated the venerable token. An illusionary figure appeared in the air from the Highness badge. Jinger shouted, "Who dares to touch the people of the Shamu heaven?" Rumble, a venerable of the Sea clan, immediately shouted, "Not good, it's peaceful. Kill this person." In the blink of an eye, Jing's phantom collided with the venerable in the void. Before the phantom disappeared, she immediately shouted, "Insect Queen, attack!" Buzz! Buzz! The void was suddenly in chaos. Han Fei was already very close to the wall of flames, only less than 5,000 kilometers away, when he saw a flame spider suddenly rushing into the void. The void silk directly grabbed Han Fei. At the same time, 4 spider phantoms rushed in all directions. BM! The void exploded. Han Fei didn't expect that, even though the Insect Queen had issued a warning, these venerables of the Sea clan still attacked him. Why was that? According to his understanding of the Sea clan, they shouldn't be the kind of people who would casually start a battle between venerables. If they really started a battle, facing the Insect Queen, they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. Jinger shouted, "If anyone from the Sea clan attacks again, the Sea of Flames will directly start a war." When facing Han Fei, Jing was like an ignorant girl. However, when facing these venerables of the Sea clan, Jing-Er's strength was reflected. She would start a war at the slightest disagreement. This was more like the style of the Yin-Yang heaven. Swish! Han Fei was directly pulled to the other side of the extreme battlefield by the spider venerable. Vaguely, Han Fei also heard a cold snort in the void. The moment the venerables attacked, the creatures of the Shuamu heaven and the Sea clan on the extreme battlefield stopped at the same time. The strong masters quickly gathered, and the two sides were ready to fight at any time. Young man Shu was stunned. As a heavenly talent, he only had 3 feelings at this time. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? When Jing-Er came back to herself, she found that Han Fei was staring at the tree of flames in a daze. Young man Shu hurriedly said to him via voice transmission, "Han Fei, are you scared out of your wits? Why don't you thank the venerable heavenly spider for saving you?" Han Fei came back to himself and looked at a giant spider covered in fire, with claws like red spears and wearing fire armor. "Thank you, venerable heavenly spider." The heavenly spider asked, "Are you a human or a bird?" "Chilla. The void was torn apart, and Jinger appeared in midair with puffed cheeks. Han Fei, why don't you change back? Han Fei's bird body turned illusory, and then his body turned illusory, revealing his original human form. The heavenly spider looked at Jinger. Jinger, he said, he is a guest from the Yin-Yang heaven, Han Fei. The venerable heavenly spider stared at Han Fei's waist with several big eyes. Is he the Yin-Yang heaven envoy who met the queen? Isn't it his first day here? Jinger looked at Han Fei helplessly. Yes. Isn't it your first day here? Why did you go to the sea beyond the sea of flames? Shu Xiaoman stood aside respectfully, not daring to speak, but thinking to herself, didn't you go to rob them? Han Fei smiled innocently. I went to the sea beyond the realm of ice to spy on the strength of the Sea Clan, so I killed dozens of Sea Spirit State Sea Demons and a Tao-seeking State Sea Demon on the way. Then I was hunted down and came to the Sea of Flames. Jinger rolled her eyes at Han Fei. You're really bold, but you'd rather rush into the ice wall than the Sea of Flames. Who gave you such a lousy idea? As Jinger spoke, she looked at Shu Xiaoman, which made Shu Xiaoman shiver. Han Fei quickly said, she didn't tell me. I just thought it would be more convenient to come to the Sea of Flames from the realm of ice. Han Fei was stunned. The old turtle was indeed up to no good. He even wanted to trick him into robbing the realm of ice's nest. That was really mean. If it weren't for the old turtle, a few peak-level explorers could have blocked his way. So what? He could have just rushed into the ice wall, and everything would be over. The heavenly spider, Venerable, said casually, do you know why the Venerables attacked you? Han Fei shook his head. Why? The heavenly spider, Venerable, narrowed his spider eyes. Because they saw that you were a peak-level law enforcer who could rival an advanced explorer. If you were a Venerable, would you have killed them? Jinger also said, before we came, Her Majesty said that you were too impulsive this time. You're not allowed to have a handsome face. Also, you're not allowed to hide the Venerable token. Han Fei was stunned. How could she punish people like this? The heavenly spider Venerable was taken aback. This kid seems to have an unusual identity. Her Majesty punished him? This was the first time this had ever happened. Shu Xiaoman looked at Han Fei dumbfoundedly. Was it not enough for him to meet Her Majesty? How great of an honor would that be? However, Han Fei's heart sank. Of course, he didn't know that being punished was also an honor. And this punishment was a bit harsh. It seemed that the Life Queen was determined to beat him with his appearance. How can I, Han Fei, succumb to a mere appearance? Han Fei didn't care and changed the topic. Well, may I ask if this tree is called a parasol tree? First update. Asking for votes into this chapter. Chapter 1185. When Han Fei was just rescued, he was shocked by the tree at first sight. Compared to the Cloud Sea Divine tree, this tree that resembled a parasol tree made his imagination run wild. It said that phoenixes inhabit the parasol tree. I've seen dragons too. Will there be a phoenix? However, to Han Fei's disappointment, Jinger said, this is the fire tree. As for what kind of tree it was, that was a long time ago. Her Lady Queen said that there was a spiritual flame that engulfed this tree, causing it to burn for 10,000 years. Don't change the subject. The Queen said you're not allowed to go to the sea cavern to cause trouble. Since you've reached the peak and can't go any further, then hurry to the Dark Warport. Han Fei was speechless and thought to himself, this is the first day I've come to the Shuimu heaven. He didn't cause any trouble. Venerable Heavenly Spider said, wait a moment. Since you're strong enough, why don't you fight in the extreme battlefield first? Tell me first, how powerful are you? Han Fei was stunned for a moment. As I said, it's not a good idea, is it? Just tell me, can you kill an advanced explorer? Jinger asked. Han Fei's mouth twitched. I can't kill him. I'll deal with anyone who's below advanced level. The heavenly spider, Venerable, looked at Han Fei in surprise. How many intermediate explorers can you beat? Suddenly, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. He thought, if I kill a bunch of them now, I'll be able to kill them. Would there be a bunch of people looking for him when he went through the tribulation? Wasn't that just drawing hatred to himself? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, can I fight again after the tribulation? Venerable Heavenly Spider shook his head. It'll only benefit you if you challenge him now. Just now, you forced your way through the wall of flames, even though you weren't using your current appearance. However, if you show off your speed in battle and kill a few Tao-seeking realm demons first, you will be able to kill them. During the tribulation, they might be afraid and not send anyone to challenge you. Han Fei's eyes immediately lit up. Sure, originally, Han Fei's purpose of coming to the Waterwood Heaven was to transcend the tribulation. After the tribulation was over, it would be fine for them to fight as they pleased. Han Fei looked back and asked expectantly, "How do I fight?" Venerable Heavenly Spider said, "You could try provoking them. You know how to provoke me, right?" Han Fei nodded. "Let me try." Jinger said, "This time, you can fight without worry. The Empress told me to watch over you until you successfully transcend the tribulation. After transcending the tribulation, you can do whatever you want." Han Fei staggered. "Do I still have to watch?" The speaker had no intention of speaking, but the listener had his own thoughts. Venerable Heavenly Spider couldn't help but look at Han Fei up and down again, wondering, is this person so important? Could it be that her Lady Queen wanted to communicate with the yin-yang sky? Shu Xiaoman, on the other hand, was full of envy and jealousy. Oh my God! Her Majesty actually asked Messenger Jing to protect Han Fei in person? How great an honor was that? Han Fei thought to himself, in this case, I might as well go through the tribulation after the battle. Otherwise, it would be uncomfortable to be watched by the Venerable every day. After a while, it was an intense battlefield with swords drawn and bows drawn. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The powerhouses of the insect tribe and the sky tribe were ready to fight at any time. They were only waiting for the Venerable One's order. At this moment, Han Fei flew over from the sky. Shu Xiaoman didn't follow him, mainly because Han Fei needed to pretend. Before he arrived, Han Fei heard a group of insects buzzing as if they were quarreling with the sea tribe. Some of the sky tribe seemed to be quarreling with the sea tribe too. When he got closer, he found it was true. In front of the array, a bald, long-necked monster was growling. "You soft insects, come over if you have the guts. I'll swallow you in one bite." A large number of insects were buzzing wildly. "Bald head, I'm going to eat you. I'll gnaw your bones until there's nothing left. I'm going to crawl into your body and gnaw your internal organs. I'm going to scratch your head." Curses like these were overwhelming. Together, they were buzzing nonstop. The scene was like a swarm of flies buzzing in one's ears, making one's head explode. In such an intense and restless situation, no one noticed Han Fei at all. So, at this moment, he was standing on the back of a one-horned fire longhorn bull, hidden among the thousands of insects, enjoying the cursing battle. Han Fei's voice was not loud, but it spread extremely far away. Han Fei shouted, "The sea tribe is a pile of fish sh*t, especially the venerable of the sea tribe. He's a fish sh*t among fish sh*t. Huh. Suddenly, the voices on the battlefield became a little lower. "Who's so fierce?" He scolded the venerable as soon as he came up. How could he be so bold? However, how could a group of insects and a group of birds be afraid of such a cursing battle? After all, the other party had a venerable, and so did they. Anyway, the venerable couldn't fight with them. So, the insects buzzed. "The venerable of the sea tribe is a pile of fish sh*t. Fish sh*t. Fish sh*t. For some reason, Han Fei suddenly felt that the insects didn't seem so scary and easy to fool. On the other side, a fire turtle roared, "Stinky insects, what are you shouting for? If you have the guts, come to me and I'll burn you stinky insects." Han Fei made up his mind. He didn't like turtles recently, so he immediately shouted, "A 1,000-year-old tortoise and a 10,000-year-old tortoise? What kind of turtle are you? You're just a tortoise." Maybe the venerable of the sea tribe is a tortoise too. Many insects were taken aback, as he seemed to have a point. Immediately, a large group of insects buzzed, "Tortoise, tortoise," in the distance. The heavenly spider venerable was lost for words. Why do I feel that this kid is evil? Jinger was also a little stunned. I don't know either. The fire heavenly bull under Han Fei tilted its body, trying to see what the man standing on it looked like. The two long whiskers on its head waved, wondering, why is this human here? Why is he leading the way? Han Fei stomped his feet. Stand still. Then, Han Fei continued to shout, I can slap 7 Sea tribe members of the same level to death with one slap. All of a sudden, a shrimp soldier pointed his spear at the swarm of insects. That human, it's you. You said you can slap 7 or 8 Sea tribe members to death with one slap. You're just a peak level law enforcer. Do you dare to fight me? Many insects and birds looked at him in surprise. Did this human shout really come from him? However, immediately an insect roared, Come on, stinky shrimp. Let me stab you to death with my big horn. I, Chongwuer, can stab you to death with one stab. A fire gull flapped its wings and shouted, Damn shrimp soldier, I'll fight you one-on-one if you dare. However, Han Fei stomped on the ground, and the fire heavenly bull staggered. With a swish, Han Fei dashed to the front of the formation. Han Fei pointed at the shrimp soldier and then at the other sea demons on the opposite side. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about every single one of you here. You're all fish sh*t. Huh, I'm going to tear you apart. Do you see my crab pincers? I'm going to break you. Immediately, the sea tribe roared nonstop. Countless insects and the sky tribe were lost for words. Human, do you know how fierce the battle in the Sea of Flames is? Don't you think before provoking? An insect hummed to the insect next to it. This man is not only ugly, but also not as smart as regular insects. In the air, a cold snort echoed. Kill him. Han Fei recognized that it was the voice of the venerable who attacked him just now. Immediately, Han Fei added, Why? Is there anything wrong with what I said? Including your venerable, they're all fish sh*t. The shrimp soldier roared, Human, don't try to argue with me. Come and fight me if you can. Han Fei raised his middle finger at the shrimp soldier. Who do you think you are? I can stab you to death with one finger. I can beat up 17 or 18 people like you with one hand. In terms of provocation, arrogance, and exaggerated acting skills, the sea tribe was no match for Han Fei at all. Immediately, a crab was so infuriated that its shell turned purple. The crab crawled out. Human, I want to blow you up. Han Fei smiled in disdain. Who do you think you are? I can beat 70 or 80 of you. Behind him, a large group of insects rolled their eyes, and the birds were speechless. Wait, you're just a peak level law enforcer. What are you bragging about? An insect reminded him, Human, don't be arrogant. There are no rules here. The heavenly spider venerable was also speechless. Doesn't he know that the insect race often fights in groups? Jinger said unconcernedly, Oh, it's just 70 or 80 crabs. What's so difficult about it? Shu Xiaoman stood aside, not daring to speak. She thought to herself, You're a venerable. Of course it's not difficult for you. However, try it on an ordinary person. Not to mention 70 or 80, it would be extremely difficult for him to fight 2 of them at the same level. With his abilities, it would be great if he could fight a legendary creature at the same level. But as soon as Han Fei shouted, more than 30 crabs crawled out, all waving their giant pincers. Human, come and fight me if you have the guts. Human, I've said it. Don't retreat. Human, if you dare to come, I'll clamp you to death. Ha ha, Han Fei laughed. Just a few dozen stinky crabs and shrimps. Are there no strong masters in your sea race? Han Fei's face suddenly changed. I'm going to fight 100 of you today. I don't care if you are a legendary creature or not. As long as you dare to come, I dare to take you on. I've been seeking defeat all my life, and I'm already invincible in my realm. People call me Dugachiobai. If you can't even find 100 strong masters, don't even think about hurting me. You fish sh*t, get out of the wall of fire from now on. The insects and birds on the water would heaven's side were stunned. Invincible in his realm? Dugachiobai? Never heard of it. The corner of the heavenly spider venerable's mouth twitched. Jinger, is the queen sure she didn't choose the wrong person? Jinger blinked her eyes and said, It sounds quite imposing. Immediately, some sea race members seemed to feel something was wrong. Some explorers glanced at Han Fei. Indeed, he was a peak-level law enforcer. But no matter what they thought, they didn't think that Han Fei was really capable of fighting 100 of them alone. Immediately, a peak-level, Dao-seeking great demon shouted, "Okay, since this human is so arrogant, let's satisfy him. Go 100 people and tear him apart." Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1186. Han Fei chuckled in his heart. "I'm rich. I should have come to the Sea of Flames earlier." In the realm of frost, he had only killed 50 sea spirits after stealing and robbing. But this Sea of Flames could kill a large group of them, although these creatures might not have any good treasures on them. However, if they were used to make hot pot, they would be extremely nutritious. It would be best if he could hunt 1,000 of such creatures. If he ate one a day, he would be unbelievably strong in 3 years. Behind Han Fei, the experts of the Insect Clan and the Sky Clan were puzzled. 1 against 100? Was this guy crazy? Only a few people knew that Han Fei was from the Yin-Yang Heaven. Could the people of the Yin-Yang Heaven be so fierce? When more than 100 sea demons roared and rushed into the battlefield, Han Fei stepped out, his eyes gloomy. "Let me be frank. This battle will not end until one of us dies. Whoever runs away, the Venerable of the Sea Clan will be a piece of **T. Those Sea Clan creatures couldn't wait to rush up and tear Han Fei apart. However, the Dao Seekers and the Venerables were all puzzled. What was this kid relying on? Immediately, the Venerable of the Sea Clan shouted, "Heavenly Spider, Serenity, if you want to fight, you're not allowed to use any abnormal things. You can't use weapons that don't belong to you." Han Fei shouted, "Venerable, you don't need to agree. I, Han Fei, have painstakingly cultivated for more than 300 years. I think I'm at the top of the realm, and I'm invincible among all the law enforcers. Why do I need to use external objects? I'll agree to it myself." Han Fei. Many creatures looked strange. Invincible among all the law enforcers? And you want to be defeated? Is this human being too arrogant? The Venerable on the opposite side snorted. "Bullish *T. Your aptitude is less than 30 years. You've been cultivating for 300 years? Han Fei was speechless. Did he see through me at a glance? But I'm not flustered at all. I'm just bragging. The Heavenly Spider Venerable shouted, "Okay, cut the crap. Let's fight. We'll fight to the death in this battle." The other Venerable frowned. Is Heavenly Spider really confident, or is he sending people to die? However, no matter how he thought about it, Han Fei couldn't win. Even if the other party was an intermediate explorer, it would not be easy to win against 100 peak law enforcers. Also, if one wasn't an explorer, their spiritual energy was limited. Even if he had a way to recover during the battle, it would be impossible for him to make it in time during such an intense battle. The Sea Race Venerable felt that his analysis was on point. He could feel that this person was not weak. He reckoned that Shui Mutian wanted to kill dozens of Sea Race experts at the same realm in one go to boost his reputation. In fact, the Sea Clan Venerable did not know Han Fei's background or what he had done in the past. Otherwise, he would not have made such a stupid decision. In the field, under the surprised gazes of countless people, Han Fei stepped on the burning sea and walked to the battlefield. Behind him, the experts of the insect race and the sky race were all shocked. Did Venerable Heavenly Spider agree? Could it be that this human was very strong? Could this be a war of attrition? All the experts in the Sea of Flames knew the goal of the sea race. That was to exhaust the experts of Shuemu Heaven. However, they couldn't figure out how Han Fei could survive the siege of 100 people. In the sky, Red Falcon and the other experts were all suspicious. It wasn't easy for someone from the Yin-Yang sky to come here. Would the Venerable send him to his death? If he wasn't courting death, then how strong was this person? On the battlefield, Han Fei looked at the 100 creatures. Instead of taking out the embroidery needle, he took out Snowmorn. They were all food. How could he eat them if they were all broken? When Snowmorn was taken out, the Sea Race Venerable suddenly roared. A sea-quelling bizarre treasure. How can a law enforcer subdue a sea-quelling bizarre treasure? A sea-quelling bizarre treasure? Immediately, the 100 Sea Race creatures were shocked. How can a law enforcer have a sea-quelling bizarre treasure? Are you kidding me? On the Shuemu heaven's side, the insects all cheered after the initial shock. Han Fei threw Snowmorn into the air, and the latter immediately revolved around him. This shows that I'm talented. You're a venerable. If you don't mind, I don't have to use it. Then, Han Fei took out the blood-drinking knife. I can use this too. Then, Han Fei put away Snowmorn. He didn't want to scare these people away. A big bird shouted, "Why are you putting it away? Use it." A bug buzzed. He was subdued by his own ability. "Why don't you use it?" Han Fei smiled casually. "Don't panic. I'll use it when I can't beat them." Han Fei immediately smiled. "Let's begin, shall we? I'm going to take action." As he said this, the void lines had already split apart. He activated the devil change, the phantom glass wings, and the body of war. Bam! The ground under Han Fei's feet exploded. He hadn't used the heavenly void divine walking technique yet, but his speed was still extremely fast, completely beyond the speed of a peak-level law enforcer. Sky-cracking spear, sea-shattering scissors, chaotic origin demon shield, fire element collision. Suddenly, all kinds of strange demonic arts were performed. The intense battlefield was dyed with a myriad of colors. A ball-shaped creature turned into a fireball and rolled to Han Fei first. It seemed to be proud of its sturdiness and wanted to smash Han Fei to death. Han Fei smiled and stretched out a hand. The infinity water wrapped his arm and condensed a cone-shaped spear on his arm. Bam! Poochie! At that moment, Han Fei clearly sensed a terrifying rebound force. But so what? The golden light of the art of invincibility flashed, and with a Poochie, the ball-shaped creature was directly poked into pieces. Even if the enemy had the immortal seal, they couldn't use the void lines. Hiss! A one-horned longhorn beetle said in shock. He punched through the fish of round fog. A big bird was surprised. He punched through it? What's that golden light? A beetle shouted, "Good. Good job." After one strike, dozens of creatures had surrounded him. All kinds of power of laws seemed to be tearing Han Fei apart. A black-shelled turtle actually mastered the law of gravity. Han Fei turned his hand, and a terrifying gravity descended. Under the heavy pressure of no laws, dozens of creatures staggered. But Han Fei seemed to be completely unaffected, and wherever the blade passed, flames flashed. Poochie, 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 clang, clang. Han Fei couldn't help but frown. There were actually 3 creatures who blocked his attack that was comparable to that of a junior explorer. However, 7 or 8 peak-level sea spirit creatures died in a single strike. This had already dumbfounded all the creatures present. The explorers were all shocked. What a strong physique! The black-shelled turtle turned into a black shield and shouted, "This person's physique is amazing, comparable to my hard armor. Let's attack together." In an instant, the strong masters who were about to rush over all stopped. On his body, white light flashed and merged into one. Han Fei narrowed his eyes, and a golden fist mark smashed the oncoming black shield. At the same time, he flashed into the air. Han Fei roared, "I have a knife that could defeat 1,000 soldiers." The terrifying spiritual energy in Han Fei's body was suddenly sucked dry. He used the draw technique and slashed through the void, heading straight for the white light array. Swish! Swish! Such a terrifying knife slashed only 3 meters deep in the white light, causing the white light to dim slightly. However, this knife was easily blocked before it could do anything. Ha ha ha! A Sea Clan, Tao-seeking realm monster laughed. Ha ha! Human, is this your knife that could defeat 1,000 soldiers? Han Fei looked solemn, and from the fish tide, spears pierced through the air one after another. Every blow was extremely fierce and seemed to be a blow with all his strength. Han Fei roared and rushed straight at the fish tide, blasting out golden fist marks one after another. The terrifying spears were all shattered by Han Fei's punch. However, when the golden fist marks bombarded the fish tide array, they could only make a hemispherical pit and were immediately blocked. Han Fei's face was livid and solemn. He seemed to be shocked by the fish tide. Countless insects and the Sky Clan roared. "Use the sea-quelling bizarre treasures. We can't fight the fish tide head-on." The heavenly spider, Venerable, frowned slightly. Is he doing this on purpose? Jing didn't look worried at all. He's acting as if he really can't beat them. Young Shuman looked at this scene in a daze. This was already very strong. Except for the fact that Han Fei didn't take advantage of his speed, those fist marks were extremely terrifying. However, when she thought that Han Fei could kill 9 sea spirit powerhouses in an instant, and Han Fei's terrifying roar, it seemed that Han Fei was indeed pretending. Han Fei sprinted and roared. I am invincible in the same realm. You want to stop me with a mere fish tide? Then I'll tear this fish tide apart. In an instant, the two sides were within a kilometer of each other. However, at that moment, the void twisted, and Han Fei's figure suddenly disappeared. Where is he? Where did he go? A member of the Oceanid race shouted. That brat wouldn't have run away, right? Some insects were dumbfounded. What kind of technique is this? Look, all of a sudden, a deafening roar blasted a big hole in the fish tide. All the living beings could only see a group of strange creatures with huge bodies stomping on the void and roaring at the sky. Puff, puff, puff. At that moment, Han Fei actually twisted the space and went inside the fish tide. The sea creatures within a kilometer of Han Fei all bled from their eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. In the scattered white light, the sky was full of Han Fei's afterimages. Puff, puff, puff. In an instant, more than 50 ordinary peak-level sea spirits were killed one after another. Their eyebrows were split open by a knife. In Han Fei's view, the so-called peak-level sea spirits were all ordinary unless they were legendary. Huh. This person is the Sky Survey Golden Eagle, just now. On the side of the sea creatures, a Venerable was furious. Then, a shark man appeared in the void. However, faster than the Venerable of the sea creatures, Venerable Heavenly Spider and Jing appeared. Venerable Heavenly Spider's voice was cold. Since this is a gambling battle, the battle has already begun. Do you still want to take action? The Insect Clan, the Sky Clan, and countless creatures of the sea creatures were all dumbfounded. They had never seen such a weird battle technique before. Those were all peak-level sea spirits. As if cutting melons and vegetables, most of them were killed in an instant. Many insects fell into the water. Is this a human being? He's so strong. Idiot, the Venerable of the sea creatures said that this is a Sky Survey Golden Eagle, not a human being. It turns out that he's a bird. And the Sky Clan was also dumbfounded. What? A law enforcer bird can turn into a human being? Why didn't we know that? A big bird what looks like? Impossible. Our Sky Clan doesn't have a Sky Survey Golden Eagle like Dugu Chiobai. The Red Falcon shouted, he is a human being, but I don't know how he turned into one of the Sky Clan. The other Venerable shouted angrily, okay, Heavenly Spider, Serenity, did you trick me? Are you arrogant because there has been no war in the Sea of Flames for a long time? Chapter 1187. Faced with the questioning of the Sea Clan Venerable, Jing said triumphantly, who told you to be stupid? If the Shuemu Heaven really had such a peerless heavenly talent, why would I send him here to die? Huh. In the battlefield, the surviving oceanic race beings all unleashed their strongest attacks. A crab's claws shattered and condensed half of its life into a blow, trying to tear Han Fei apart. A golden man stepped in the void, clasped his hands, and violently tore apart the peak blow condensed by essence blood. A blood-red spear shattered the void, trying to pierce Han Fei. The void twisted, and Han Fei had already appeared beside the shrimp soldier. The white knife stabbed in, and the red knife came out, killing the shrimp soldier with one blow. Puff, puff, puff. It was a one-sided massacre on the battlefield, and all the insect race and sky race beings were completely dumbfounded by the sight of it. Wasn't this beating a little too violent? A longhorn beetle touched its big horn with its toes. It felt that Han Fei could break its big horn by force. Some eagles couldn't help but retract their sharp claws. They felt that if their claws clasped on Han Fei, they would probably break. The fire essence giant turtle was still trying to hit Han Fei with its huge turtle shell. However, as soon as it hit Han Fei, it froze inexplicably. A bunch of void lines were clasped on its body. How could it move? The Sea Clan Venerable was shocked. This human is so strong. However, he's only a peak-level law enforcer. His physique is unbelievably strong, and his means are changeable and complicated. He can control the power of space, gravity, and unparalleled speed. The point is, how can a peak-level law enforcer absorb a large amount of spiritual energy and energy from the void without limit? In the field, Han Fei opened his mouth, and the billowing spiritual energy and energy were swallowed by him easily. Therefore, as long as his realm was high enough, it was no longer necessary to absorb spiritual energy from fish. Now Han Fei had infinite spiritual energy. Puff, puff, puff. When there were only 7 or 8 legendary creatures left, a Sea Clan member shouted, "Self-destruct at any time." Hearing this, Han Fei couldn't bear it. He activated the agility of wind. However, Han Fei wasn't going to fight. He was going to pick up all the creatures that had been slaughtered. All the creatures. Han Fei roared, "You Sea Clan, how dare you destroy my food? Go to hell." Hiss. Many members of the sea race sucked in a deep breath. They had fought to this point, and this human still wanted to eat? For a moment, many sea race beings were terrified. It was not easy for him to cultivate to the peak of sea spirit. If he were to be eaten just like that, just the thought of it was a little horrifying. After all, they were no longer the ordinary, chaotic, and ignorant sea creatures. After picking up the food, Han Fei looked back and grinned. "Are you going to blow yourself up? Let's see who's faster." As soon as he said this, the creatures were terrified. Some of the living beings tried to self-detonate, while others tried to split off a wisp of their divine soul to escape. As the void twisted, Han Fei had already attacked at full speed. How could these law enforcers compare to the speed of a peak intermediate explorer? The void constantly twisted, and with a pung-pung-pung sound, terrifying explosive waves immediately swept out in all directions. However, among the 100 peak-level sea spirits, only 3 legendary creatures succeeded in self-detonating. The rest were all stored in Forge the Universe as food storage. Han Fei thought to himself, "After this battle, I'll sell the large number of ordinary creatures I collected before. In the future, I'll eat peak-level sea spirits." Once upon a time, how powerful were the 8 wings of Blue Feather? But at this moment, they had become Han Fei's food. So far, only 5 years had passed. The whole audience was silent. The insects stopped buzzing, and the sky race was a little horrified. Was there going to be a heaven-defying master among the humans? Those who knew Han Fei's origin were amazed. What kind of place is the Yin-Yang Heaven? It's said that there's only one human race there. Are the people there so cruel and ferocious? The Yin-Yang Heaven is really terrifying. The sea race Venerable seemed to be on the verge of exploding. 100 peak-level sea spirits were all killed in this battle. This was the fastest and heaviest loss on the Sea of Flames battlefield in hundreds of years. The shark Venerable shouted, "I don't care who this person is. In this life, he can no longer become an explorer. Otherwise, he'll have to live in the Cloud Sea Divine Tree for the rest of his life." Suddenly, Peaceful said, "Han Fei, hang up the sign." Han Fei was slightly taken aback. Is this also part of the deterrence? He couldn't help but smile. "That buck-toothed Venerable, yes, it's you. Let me tell you, in a few days, I'm going to have a tribulation. The place of a tribulation is in the Dark War Port. You're welcome to visit." Wow. When Han Fei finished all this, under countless gazes, a token appeared in his hand. Until this moment, Han Fei leisurely hung the Venerable token on his waist. Wow. When the Venerable token appeared, the pupils of the sea race Venerable suddenly constricted. Venerable token? Peaceful's Venerable token? Peaceful was an extremely special existence among all the Venerables in the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. How could her Venerable token appear on Han Fei? While the insects in the sky race were all shocked, Peaceful smiled slyly. "You guessed right. Han Fei is the next king's servant that Her Majesty wants to cultivate." Wow. King's servant. Wow. Who is Han Fei? Why haven't I heard of this person before? Oh my God. Is Her Majesty going to recruit a king's servant? For a moment, everyone in the Shuemu heaven was in an uproar. The entire Cloud Sea Divine Tree knew that Peaceful was the only king's servant. And now, the queen was going to recruit a king's servant? Didn't this mean that Her Majesty liked Han Fei very much? But in the ears of the Sea Race venerables, these words exploded like thunder. Others might not know, but how could they not? In the entire Shuemu heaven, Peaceful might rarely participate in battles, but in terms of combat power, she was probably the strongest venerable in the Shuemu heaven. Han Fei looked at Peaceful in astonishment, and the latter smiled proudly. So do you know? If you don't have any ability, how can you serve Her Majesty? A few days later, let's see who dares to come to the Dark War port. Although Peaceful was usually naive and sweet, how could someone who could become a venerable be a fool? Han Fei wanted to be a king's servant? What a joke. Her Majesty was a woman. Han Fei, a man, wanted to be a king's servant? He was beautiful. However, the Sea Race didn't know that. Han Fei had the venerable token, and he slaughtered more than 100 peak-level sea spirits today. This achievement was bound to shake the Sea Race royal city. But Han Fei had a bad feeling. What the hell is a king's servant? Didn't they say that I could shock my opponents by fighting them today? Then, I can safely transcend the tribulation. What the hell is a king's servant? Even the heavenly spider, Venerable, looked at Peaceful in surprise. Didn't they say that they would help Han Fei transcend the tribulation? As a king's servant, how could the royal city tolerate it? They would definitely send a top heavenly talent to snipe Han Fei. However, as if she didn't see anyone's gaze, Jin asked with a smile, Han Fei, do you still want to fight? Immediately, many sea creatures shrank their bodies. What the hell are you talking about? A person chosen as a king's servant could kill 100 experts of the same realm. How could they fight her? Courting death? Do you think we're stupid? Peaceful said leisurely, what Dao-seeking state? Mid-level sea monsters? Actually, we can fight them. Right, Han Fei? The corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched. There's a saying in this world that beautiful women couldn't be trusted. Just now, she pretended to be sweet and innocent and vowed that she would help him transcend the tribulation. The venerable's heart skipped a beat. If that's the case, everything makes sense. The so-called provocation was fake. The Life Queen really wanted to test Han Fei. Since it was a test, it meant that the Life Queen also attached great importance to Han Fei, thinking that he could resist the heavenly talents of the royal city. Immediately, the venerable snorted coldly. In that case, a few days later, in the Dark War port, I'd like to see if this boy can transcend the tribulation safely. Retreat for now. The sea creatures retreated. As for the hundreds of peak-level sea spirits who died, stimulated by such news, they were temporarily put aside. If they could kill a character like Han Fei in the Dark War port, so what if 100 peak-level sea spirits died? In a sense, the value of Han Fei alone far exceeded that of countless peak-level sea spirits. Once Han Fei successfully transcended the tribulation, if he hid in the Cloud Sea Divine Tree and cultivated until he reached the venerable realm, then the sea creatures would inevitably face a new great enemy. Besides, the venerable token had been given to Han Fei. In a sense, it could be said that the Life Queen had already treated Han Fei as a venerable. Such a character, no matter how many sea spirit state creatures were exchanged for, it was worth it. After the sea creatures retreated, Han Fei was about to ask Jing what she meant. However, with a buzzing sound, a huge number of insects surrounded Han Fei. Han Fei, Han Fei, Han Fei. The Sky Clan landed one after another, looking at Han Fei curiously. A insect asked, Han Fei, how did you become so strong? A big bird asked, Han Fei, why can you turn into a sky survey golden eagle? It's always us who turn into humans. I've never heard of a human turning into a sky survey golden eagle. A insect buzzed, Han Fei, is your physique harder than my bighorns? Han Fei. As for Shu Xiaoman, after witnessing the scene of Han Fei fighting 100 enemies alone and winning, huge waves had already been set off in her heart. When Han Fei hunted the sea spirit state powerhouses in the realm of ice, it could be explained as a sneak attack. However, today's battle was a real head-on battle. It was a real head-on battle, but Han Fei was still able to win, which showed how strong he was. At this moment, Shu Xiaoman felt that Yu Qin's defeat was justified. Even Venerable Snow might not have such a combat power before. Shu Xiaoman even wondered if Her Majesty was really going to train Han Fei to be her servant. After half an hour, when Han Fei crawled out of the endless insects with messy hair, the heavenly spider Venerable and Jing were nowhere to be seen. Only young man Shu stood there in a daze. Han Fei immediately asked, "Where is Jing?" Shu Xiaoman's heart sank. Sure enough, Han Fei had regarded Messenger Jing as an equal. He even called her by her name. This should be the pride of a top heavenly talent, right? Shu Xiaoman said with a sullen face. Messenger Jing said she would go back first and wait for you to go back to cook. Han Fei didn't feel good. Eat, eat. This woman only knows how to eat. Damn, why can't I be safe wherever I go? I just want to go through the tribulation quietly. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1188. When Han Fei returned to the Flying Feather Tribe, it was already night. As soon as he returned to the department, Jing said to him telepathically, "Come and cook in Xue's yard." Han Fei said to young man, "I'm going to cook." Of course, Shu Xiaoman didn't receive the voice transmission. After all, she was a law enforcer at the peak, so she didn't have the chance to have a meal with the Jing messenger. Shu Xiaoman, "Okay, I'll go back first. Do you still remember the way back?" I remember. There's a map. In Wushang Shue's courtyard, there were only Jing, and Wushang Shue. Wushang Shue family. Han Fei came. The corner of her mouth twitched as she thought to herself, should I leave? However, the hot pot and barbecue were indeed delicious. Seeing Han Fei, Jing eyes lit up. Come on. Didn't you catch so many creatures today? Give me a few of the best quality, hot pot and barbecue. Gloomily, Han Fei took out the barbecue grill and the pot. He searched for a moment and picked out a legendary lobster. The lobster was still burning. As soon as the prawn appeared, Wushang Shue pointed his finger at it, and a layer of frost formed on its body. Wushang Shue suppressed his anger and said, "Take out a 20-meter-long lobster. Do you want to set the cloud seed divine tree on fire? Just savor the taste of the food. It's so big. Are you two good-for-nothings?" Jing giggled and hugged Wushang Shue's arm. Aya, a big head meant a lot of meat. Also, it's a legendary one, so the meat must be good. Han Fei quickly dismembered the shell and said unhurriedly, "Jing, I've been betrayed too thoroughly, haven't I? I sense an ominous aura coming from you." Jing said nonchalantly, "The queen said that you have the bearing of a king. If he was afraid of transcending a tribulation, then what was that? Don't worry, I'll hold the line for you when the time comes. Grab some delicious ingredients and bring them back." Han Fei thought to himself, "I was going to wait until the tribulation is over. I'll make a delicious meal, at least a few dozen dishes, to reward you. Now, let's eat hot pot and barbecue. For the past 3 years, I've only been eating hot pot and barbecue. I'm determined not to cook anything else for you." The two venerables just watched Han Fei slash like water. His understanding of lobster was almost to the extreme. The two of them couldn't help but secretly record it in their hearts, thinking, from now on, Shumu Tian will have another great delicacy. While cutting the translucent meat, Han Fei said, "Venerable Snow, I have a lot of materials here. Do you want them?" Wushang Shue was stunned. What material? Han Fei immediately threw out hundreds of sea-swallowing seashells and said, "Here they are. These are the resources that I've worked hard to save over the years. There are all sorts of functions, combat skills, and a huge pile of materials. I've lost count of them myself. I just want to exchange for something good." Looking at the hundreds of sea-swallowing seashells, Wushang Shue was stunned. How many things did this guy rob? He probably did this a lot in the yin-yang heaven. Jing asked in surprise, "Is there anything to eat inside?" Han Fei shook his head quickly. "No, they're all materials. They're inedible. Jing immediately lost interest. That's boring. Go out and sell it yourself. Wushang Shui scanned the area with his perception and felt unwell. She found that many sea-swallowing seashells were stuffed with various weapons of the sea demons. Golden harpoons, golden battle suits, piles and piles of them. Of course, in addition to those sea demon weapons, there are all kinds of ores, a large pile of demonic stones, and thousands of combat skills and cultivation techniques. Wushang Shui suddenly froze, grabbed a sea-swallowing seashell, pulled it out with one hand, and a 10,000-year-old big red trunk more than 10 meters long appeared in her hand. Jinger didn't even bother to look at it, but when she saw the big red trunk, she was stunned. A 10,000-year-old big red trunk. Han Fei was also stunned. Did Wushang Shui and the others know about this thing? This material is not of a high level. As for why this part was in the sea-swallowing seashell, it seemed that it was used to build a house, and then a piece of leftover material was thrown in. Wushang Shui couldn't help but look at Han Fei. Where did you get this tree? Han Fei couldn't help asking, is there anything wrong with this tree? It's just a material for an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. It shouldn't be of a high level, right? Wushang Shui immediately said, You don't understand. You don't understand the layout of the Waterwood Sky. There are 2 royal cities here, but in fact, the other royal city is called the Blood Sea Divine Wood. The tree is the city, and the city is the tree. The layout is somewhat similar to the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. However, the way it grows is slightly different. The Blood Sea Divine Wood is not that big, only more than 300 kilometers above the sea surface. However, its seeds can grow this kind of big red trunk. Therefore, more than 300,000 kilometers around the Blood Sea Divine Wood are full of this kind of big red trunk. There lives a kind of fish called Millennium Snapper. Well, it's also a cultivation holy land for fire attribute creatures. Han Fei's pupils constricted, and he suddenly remembered a name. Yang Ryun. Han Fei couldn't help asking, Then what's the use of this tree? I have a whole one here. A whole one? Seeing that Wushang Shui and Jing were a little stunned, Han Fei couldn't help but scratch his head and say, Actually, not exactly. I also use some of them, such as building houses, making weapons. I use some of them. Building houses? Immediately, Wushang Shui wanted to slap Han Fei to death. Are you using the big red trunk to build houses? Han Fei said in a daze, It's just a tree. What's wrong with using it to build houses? Jing stretched out her hand and said, Hand over the big red trunk. Immediately, Han Fei thought to himself, Wait, does this big red trunk have any value that hasn't been discovered yet? Immediately, Han Fei said, Let's talk nicely. Don't rob me. Jing said helplessly, It's not me who wants it, but the queen. Han Fei didn't notice. Perhaps because no one had ever robbed him of something, he immediately said, But the queen has to pay. Bam! With a thud, Han Fei fell to the ground. It wasn't Wushang Shui or Jing or who attacked him, but a force that appeared naturally in the air directly pressed him to the ground. Hey, I'm gonna die. Then the queen's voice leisurely sounded in the small courtyard. As a body cultivator, what you lack most is the baptism of energy. I'll give you an immeasurable fruit in exchange for this big red trunk. Han Fei felt that the pressure on his body was gone, and he jumped up with a shiver. He looked around, but didn't see the life queen anywhere. However, he was shocked. Immeasurable fruit? The water fairy seemed to have told him about this immeasurable fruit. Heaven and earth are boundless, and the surging energy can give birth to a kind of spiritual fruit in the void, called the immeasurable fruit. This is definitely a good thing. Han Fei immediately nodded. I've really made a fortune this time. In the past, he thought that this big red trunk took up so much space that he almost built all the ships. If I had known this, I would have dug up all the big red trunks in the level 3 fishery. Damn it. With a thought from Han Fei, 2 sections of a tree more than 500 meters long were carried side by side. He had to fly over the courtyard to carry them. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough space in the courtyard. With a shake of the void, the 2 sections of the big red trunk were gone. Then, he heard the Life Queen say, What else? Han Fei chuckled and took out 2 more small sections, which added up to about 300 meters long. He didn't know that this thing was so valuable. If he had known that a big red trunk could be exchanged for an immeasurable fruit, he wouldn't have used half a branch of it. When the 300-meter-long big red trunk was swept away by the void, Han Fei immediately patted his chest and said, "Your Majesty, don't worry. Later, I'll find a chance to go to the Bloodseed of Vinewood and take a few more for you." Okay, this fruit can't be used by law enforcers. Otherwise, you'll be stuffed to death. After saying this, the Life Queen fell silent. A reddish-green fruit descended from the void. Han Fei grabbed it delightedly, only to be stunned. Isn't this just a fig? Wait. Han Fei's pupils constricted, and a string of information appeared. Name immeasurable fruit, introduction, a demonic plant in the Pioneer Sea state. It gathers the energy of heaven and earth, is contaminated with a wisp of chaotic energy, and contains a trace of Tao. Before comprehending the Tao, it cannot be eaten. Otherwise, it will explode and die. Level, none, quality, ultra quality, quality, 1 wisp of chaotic energy. Effect, if eaten directly, it will increase a lot of spiritual energy and obtain a huge amount of energy of heaven and earth. It is ineffective for creatures above the king level and can be eaten repeatedly. Wow! Han Fei took a deep breath. This thing was definitely of a high level. However, it seemed that he couldn't use it now. Although the Supreme Yin Yang will seem to have some Tao. However, that was a combat skill, which had nothing to do with comprehension. In any case, he still didn't know what Tao Aura was. Besides, what was chaotic energy? Was it an energy of a higher level than spiritual energy? Whatever. Han Fei felt that he had made a lot of gains this time. The more unusable it was, the more advanced it was. Ordinary items were no longer of much use to him now. He was short of such top-level treasures. However, Han Fei was slightly puzzled. Wasn't this immeasurable fruit born from the chaos? Could it be that the water fairy tricked him? That shouldn't be right. The water fairy had no reason to trick him. Or could he add that it was born from the chaos of a Pioneer Sea State powerhouse? As for Shui, Mu Heaven, they only had 2 sea expansion experts. One was the Cloud Sea Divine Tree, but the Cloud Sea Divine Tree seemed to only grow in height, not fruit. Then, Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, the Life Queen, a fruit that grew on her own? Could the Life Queen be a plant? Han Fei immediately confirmed this idea. The water fairy was also a plant. Who said plants couldn't turn into humans? Oh my god, Han Fei made up his mind. Although he didn't know what the Life Queen wanted the big red trunk for. However, this thing was definitely good stuff. If he had the chance, he would definitely dig up a few more. Anyway, Forge the Universe was big enough for now. The second update, asking for votes in a chapter. Chapter 1189. After the transaction with the Life Queen was completed, Han Fei chuckled. Well, Venerable Snow, do you still want to exchange these resources? Wushang Shui said leisurely. You're late. Most of my resources have been given to Yu Chen. He's about to enter the Tao and needs resources. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Jing who blinked. I stay in the Divine Palace every day. I don't need resources. Han Fei, however, Wushang Shui said, you want to quickly liquidate the resources you have in order to transcend the tribulation and exchange them for something useful, right? Han Fei nodded quickly. Of course. If it weren't for the tribulation, I wouldn't have taken action now. This is the Waterwood Heaven. After all, I'm wasting my resources here on someone else's territory. Wushang Shui said lightly. Well, since it's a deal, you ask for what you want first. Han Fei's eyes lit up and he thought, good idea. Han Fei immediately said, what I want is actually very simple. For example, this candle dragon blood, fateful holy grass, level 3 soul crystals, ultra-quality energy fruits, the flesh of venerable level sea demons. Stop. While Han Fei was counting, Jing looked at Han Fei with a complicated look. Don't count. Her Majesty said that the most terrifying thing about the heavenly tribulation is the terrifying energy that can obliterate vitality. So, energy fruits and candle dragon blood are useless to you. Leave everything here and Her Majesty can give you 10 drops of the water of the spring of life. Han Fei. Wu Shuai looked at Jing in shock. These things are worth 10 drops of the water of the spring of life. Han Fei was about to ask, what the hell is the water of the spring of life? How many years did I have to save up for just 10 drops? However, after hearing Wu Shuai's question, he immediately realized something. The Life Queen, just from the name alone, must be related to life. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Jing, what's the effect of the water of the spring of life? Jing was also a little surprised. Effect? 1 drop of the water of the spring of life can prolong one's life for 100 years and can bring the dead back to life. Of course, that's when the soul hasn't been obliterated. In addition, life can repair spiritual veins and polish the foundation. So, strictly speaking, all the materials you have here can probably be exchanged for 5 drops of the water of the spring of life. Han Fei was surprised to hear this. However, he was also very conflicted in his heart. I've accumulated so many years of things, but in the end, I can only exchange them for 10 drops of that so-called water of life. Seeing Han Fei's silence, Wu Shuai said, It is your great fortune that Her Majesty values you so much. As for Jing, she said, well, Her Majesty the Queen said that there are 5 extra drops. Each drop is equivalent to 10 Tao-seeking realm demons. In other words, you Oshuemu heaven 50 Tao-seeking realm demons. You've really gotten off easy. 50 Tao-seeking realm demons could be exchanged for 5 drops of the spring of life. If others were to find out about this, they would probably go crazy. Han Fei was a little dumbfounded. Am I that rich? However, Han Fei thought to himself, I really don't need anything special now. Weapons? He had 2 sea-quelling bizarre treasures, an ultra-quality divine weapon, the blood-drinking knife, and a high-quality divine weapon, so he didn't lack anything. He didn't take out the spirit awakening fluid. He was still thinking that he had to help the 9-tailed mantis shrimp and the others make breakthroughs as quickly as possible. He had a lot of spiritual spring water and spiritual fruits. However, since he had a level 9 spiritual heritage and learned the war body, it seemed that his demand for spiritual energy was not very strong. However, just in case, he still had to stock up. In the future, if he had extra, he could sell it to the public. However, now that things had come to this point, how could Han Fei not make the exchange? Han Fei thought to himself, I'm not bragging. In these swallowing seashells, there were more than 300 low-quality divine weapons and more than 60 mid-quality divine weapons. If he had the 100 Battles divine hammer to refine all the materials, he could refine about 30 mid-quality divine weapons and more than 300 low-quality divine weapons. Just this portion alone was an astronomical figure. It was not something that could be exchanged for with money. Not to mention that Han Fei had ultra-quality materials that could almost arm thousands of people. Of course, Han Fei still chose to trade without hesitation, because judging from a reaction of Wu Shuai and Jing, the value of the Spring of Life was more than all the resources he had combined. When a glittering glass bottle suddenly floated out of the void, Han Fei felt a little heartache. At least 80% of his wealth was exchanged for 10 drops of the Spring of Life. All of a sudden, he felt shabby. Han Fei immediately took the bottle. This thing is really precious. In the future, I'll use it drop by drop. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I won't use a single drop. He just glanced at it, but no information emerged. But Han Fei didn't panic. At least it could be used as a life-saving secret treasure. After a moment, Jing was eating hot pot happily, and Han Fei was calculating all the resources he had left now. First of all, he hadn't taken the heavenly heart pill that Old Bai gave him yet. It was said that it could increase the success rate of passing the tribulation by 30%, which should be good. Secondly, 80% of his wealth was exchanged for these 10 drops of the Spring of Life. 1 drop could prolong his life for 100 years, which was very precious. It was even more expensive than the heavenly heart pill. In addition to these 2, Han Fei found that he only had 3 things left: spiritual spring water, spiritual fruit, and spirit awakening fluid. At night, when Han Fei returned to his residence, he was a little absent-minded. After walking a few times, he felt that he had gone the wrong way. After confirming with the map several times, Han Fei scanned with his perception and saw Shu Xiaoman, who was cultivating. However, at this moment, Shu Xiaoman was swimming on the vines of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. The longbow in her hand, like a butterfly, circled around her body and wandered. Swish, swish, swish. The arrow stream was extremely fast, and Han Fei couldn't help but be a little surprised. What a familiar archery technique. Hiss, shadowless arrow stream. Han Fei's eyes widened. Damn, isn't this shadowless arrow stream of Diwu Haiguang? Suddenly, Han Fei's body stiffened, and he had a very bold guess in his heart. Diwu Haiguang seems very handsome. He seems to be on the same level as Zhang Xuanyu. Could it be that guy is from the Shuimu Heaven? If Diwu Haiguang is from the Shuimu Heaven, then when do they go there? Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Yes, the gatekeeper is the leafless tree, and the leafless tree is a demonic plant of the Shuimu Heaven. It originally believed in the Life Queen. Then, wouldn't it be very easy for the Shuimu Heaven to arrange people to go to the Yinyang Heaven? Why do I feel that the Shuimu Heaven and the Yinyang Heaven have always been separated? With a thought, the longbow appeared in Han Fei's hand. Swish, swish, swish. The War Soul archery technique was also a battle archery technique. Although it was not as good as the Shuimu Heaven in terms of technique, it was definitely not weak. However, it wouldn't be so fast. At this moment, Han Fei used it, which immediately made Shu Xiaoman vigilant. Who is it? Swish, swish, swish. In Han Fei's perception, Shu Xiaoman's arrows formed a line, and the archer's hand almost turned into an afterimage. Unfortunately, Shu Xiaoman's strength was much worse than Diwu Haiguang's, and the strength of each arrow was inferior. From Han Fei's point of view, Shu Xiaoman couldn't be ranked on the heavenly talent list of the Thousand-Star City. However, even if it couldn't be ranked, it was probably outside the top 10 or even within the top 100. After breaking the War Soul archery technique, Shu Xiaoman looked at Han Fei, who was rushing over from a distance in surprise, and couldn't help but say in surprise, "You also know battle archery?" Han Fei said lightly, "As a soul warrior, isn't it natural for me to know battle archery? But what kind of battle archery is this? It looks really powerful." Shu Xiaoman said, "This is one of the unique skills of our Shuimu Heaven's battle archery, called Shadowless Arrow. In fact, the strength of your arrows just now was very strong, but they were too slow." And when Han Fei heard this, he immediately narrowed his eyes. Sure enough, Diwu Haiguang is from the Shuimu Heaven. Then he thought about the Sea Cloud Tower, which ranked at the bottom of the 7 academies in the Thousand-Star City. Sea Cloud Tower, Sea Cloud Divine Tree. Han Fei immediately narrowed his eyes. Oh my God! It turns out that the people from the Shuimu Heaven have already infiltrated the Yinyang Heaven, and they even became one of the 7 major academies? No wonder the Sea Cloud Tower had always been very low-key. I'm afraid it's not that they want to be low-key, but that they're a little incompatible with the people from the Yinyang Heaven, so they can't be high-profile. However, did old Han know that the Sea Cloud Tower had repeatedly helped him and the Thug Academy? No matter if they knew or not, he had to be careful and not trust them too much. Han Fei. Hearing Shu Xiaoman calling him, Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Oh, you are fast, but you can't crush my slow arrows, can you?" Shu Xiaoman was slightly taken aback and said doubtfully, "Because you are strong." Han Fei smiled and didn't say anything. So what's the point of just practicing speed? If you're a little bit stronger now, your overall strength will definitely improve by 30%. But even if you're twice as fast, it's still not very useful in the face of body tempering. This was just like the Yi family in the Thousand-Star City. They had the Heavenly Void divine walking technique, so their speed was unparalleled. However, their real combat power was really worrying. Han Fei's words made Shu Xiaoman tremble slightly. "What I lack is strength." Han Fei curled his lips. "What you lack is energy, and you lack a physique that can burst out stronger energy." In essence, your physique is too weak. Seeing Shu Xiaoman stunned, Han Fei thought to himself, this girl has been following me for a day. She's doing her best. Therefore, Han Fei couldn't help but remind her, if you can't practice body tempering now, find a way to find a spiritual fruit that can change your physique. Although it can't double the growth of your physique, it's not a big problem to increase it by 20% or 30%. Think about it yourself. I'm going to sleep. The third update. Please vote. I'm going to tell you everything. Prepare for the tribulation tomorrow. End of this chapter. Chapter 1190. The next day, when Han Fei woke up, he found Shu Xiaoman sitting on a leaf not far from his house. Seeing that Han Fei had gotten up, Shu Xiaoman pulled a long vine and landed in front of Han Fei with a vigorous posture. Han Fei wondered, didn't you understand? Shu Xiaoman said very seriously, I know what you mean, but I'm not in a hurry. I will cultivate to the peak of law enforcer until I can't do anything about it. Then I will go through the tribulation. Han Fei shrugged and said, if you don't strengthen your body, I'm afraid that tribulation won't be easy. Shu Xiaoman stuck out her tongue and asked curiously, did you sell all the treasures you got to Lord Snow yesterday? Han Fei was stunned. Didn't I sell them to the Life Queen? However, on second thought, Han Fei wondered why a king kept making deals with him. So, Wushang Snow acted as the actor of this deal. However, Han Fei wondered, how do you know? Shu Xiaoman said, it's all over the world. Lord Snow said that our Flying Feather Clan has got a lot of resources and is going to hold a large-scale market trade in the Flying Feather Clan. At that time, all the creatures on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree will come. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Those things I have are not enough to sell. At most, they're enough for a few thousand people. What are all the creatures in the Cloud Sea Divine Tree going to do? Shu Xiaoman's eyes widened, and the corner of her mouth twitched. You sold the things of thousands of people alone? Han Fei shrugged. I guess so. However, after one day, Shu Xiaoman finally knew that it was impossible for a person like Han Fei to be poor. From the realm of ice to the sea of flames, he never spat out anything that he could put in his pocket. Even when fighting, he didn't forget to fish out corpses. However, Shu Xiaoman didn't expect that Han Fei was so rich. The resources of one person were enough for thousands of people. Wasn't this a bit too exaggerated? Shu Xiaoman reminded him. I'm still here to remind you. You don't want to go to a large market. At that time, thousands upon thousands of living beings would fill up the area within a 500-mile radius of the Flying Feather Command. Also, the static messenger said that you need to go to the Fearless Barrier yourself, so she won't wait for you. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, has she already gone? Shu Xiaoman shook her head. I don't know. I think he did. Han Fei asked again, what about Venerable Snow? Young Tree Man continued to shake its head. How can I understand the actions of the Venerable Ones? So, are you going to the Dark War Port today? If you want to go, I can accompany you. Although Han Fei still wanted to see what the large market looked like. However, even if he wanted to, he didn't have any money on him. Apart from the necessary resources that he still kept, he could be said to have gone bankrupt overnight. On his second day in the Waterwood Heaven, everything went surprisingly smoothly. It could be said that on this day, the Life Queen had contacted him almost 3 times, and he had no idea why. Now, there were only a few treasures left on Han Fei, and he had no more so-called property accumulation. However, this also made Han Fei realize a problem. The good treasures in this world were far more advanced than he thought. Once upon a time, a mid-level divine weapon was a fatal threat. Back when he broke through the Demon Forest channel, the era when a few mid-quality divine weapons scared the opponent, so much had passed. Han Fei didn't even know the so-called good or bad ones anymore. A worthless 10,000-year-old big red trunk was exchanged for a top-level spiritual fruit, the immeasurable fruit. 10 drops of the so-called spring of life had caused him to go bankrupt, and he even owed the other party the heads of 50 Tao-seeking realm beings. Han Fei immediately made a decision. Let's go to the Dark War Port. The Dark War Port was the most chaotic battlefield in the Waterwood Heaven. It was mainly composed of a seaborne grassland. It was said that a thick layer of seaweed was spread out for more than 200,000 kilometers. Han Fei stood on the easternmost branch of the cloud sea divine tree, looking into the distance. The giant sun was floating in the sky. However, the spiritual energy here was restless, and there was demonic energy everywhere. Han Fei immediately narrowed his eyes. "Young tree man, you go back. I'll go there myself." Young tree man said, "You go to the fearless barrier by yourself. I'm going to the Guardian Alliance." Han Fei asked, "Huh?" Young tree man nodded. "Follow me." After another teleportation array, Han Fei and young tree man came to a seaborne grassland. Han Fei scanned with his perception and found that there were many thick roots on the seabed here. Some of the roots even floated out of the sea. Under the seaborne grassland, everything looked dark. Humans, the Sky Clan, the Insect Clan, and the Tree Demon were scattered everywhere. There were all kinds of big seagull-like birds flying in the air. Occasionally, a big bird would stand on the thick seaweed on the sea surface and hunt. Then, he continued to fly out of the sea. There were insects digging in the pits on the seabed. These insects digging nearby were not strong, and most of them were not hidden fishers. In Han Fei's perception, there were very few humans within 1,000 kilometers, only a few hundred. This meant that the humans should be in the sea thousands of kilometers ahead. Even the tree demon was moving forward slowly. Although it was not fast, it was very powerful. It looked as if a forest was moving underwater. Young tree man said, "Let's go forward." The Guardian Alliance is composed of the 4 clans. Normally, he would stay here most of the time. Today, it's a bit unusual. The two flew for about 5,000 kilometers, and Han Fei had already sensed a large number of creatures of various clans, who seemed to be fighting fiercely. Swish, swish, swish. Countless people shot with bows, and the arrows burst at the bottom of the water. Seagulls and eagles skimmed over the water from time to time, grabbed a big fish or squid, and tore it on the spot. Compared with humans and the Sky Clan, the Insect Clan's fighting style was quite unreasonable. The black swarm of insects, all hidden fishers, was like an army passing through. Wherever they passed, not even a blade of grass would grow. At this moment, it seemed to be the beginning of a round of war. When Han Fei and young Tree Man arrived, they saw that a large number of sea demons were retreating, and only a few were still struggling underwater. However, their fate was obvious. They were either dragged away and eaten by the Insect Clan or caught and eaten by the Sky Clan. Young Tree Man said, "The Sea Clan is not stupid. The defense line of the Insect Clan and the Tree Demon is the most difficult to break. Therefore, those who cross the fearless barrier will only launch a charge when there are at least enough fish to form a big tide." At this moment, someone shouted in front, "Gather!" The sea spirit state creatures can already cross the fearless barrier and pass through the dark water, which means that there is a problem ahead. Everyone, gather quickly. Chirp, just as the man shouted. A raven flew back from a distance, shouting, "A large-scale Explorer-level battle has broken out on the fearless barrier. Rear, prepare." A one-horned insect shouted, spiky beetles in the front, razor centipedes in the bottom of the sea. Other insects eat. In the Sky Clan was a dense mass. A human expert shouted, "Get ready. The upper water is under our control. Don't let any sea spirit state creatures pass." In Han Fei's perception, the branches of those slow-moving tree demons had begun to grow crazily. In the rear of the battlefield, they almost formed a wall. In other words, even if the humans, insects, and Sky Clan were breached, the tree demons would still be there. Han Fei didn't expect that a large-scale battle would break out on the second day he came to the Waterwood Sky. It seemed to have something to do with him, didn't it? Han Fei was wondering if he should participate in this battle. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Han Fei here." Han Fei looked at the source of the voice, only to see a group of people he didn't know. Those people were mostly wearing blue clothes and didn't seem to be from the Flying Feather Clan. Shu Xiaoman said, "They're from the Blue Smoke Clan. They're good at illusions and have strong spiritual power. Let's go there." "I don't see anyone from the Flying Feather Clan. They shouldn't be here." As soon as Han Fei and Shu Xiaoman landed, Countless eyes looked at them. The person who shouted just now looked at Han Fei with a smile. It's true that seeing is believing. Just now, I recognized Brother Han at a glance. Ha ha! Han Fei's face darkened. How'd he recognize me? Han Fei turned his head and looked forward. What's the situation now? Someone said, it's mainly because you killed too many people yesterday. Your identity as a king's servant candidate was revealed, and you threatened to undergo a tribulation. Therefore, the sea race has directly responded today and has already launched 2 attacks. Someone interrupted. It said that some prodigies from Monarch City have taken action. The battle has already begun on the fearless battlefield. Han Fei's eyes narrowed. Because of me, Han Fei was speechless. The Sea clans started a war just because he was going to have a tribulation? Someone from the Blue Smoke tribe chuckled. It doesn't matter if it's you or not. As long as someone transcends a tribulation, there's bound to be a war. Especially those who choose to undergo tribulation in the Dark War port. The sea race will treat them with even more caution. Han Fei said solemnly, should I go to the Fearless Barrier first? Young Shu Man replied, the Fearless Barrier is still far away. Someone from the Blue Smoke tribe said, we should wait. The seaborne grassland between the Fearless Barrier and the Defender League was also known as the Dark Water. No one knew how many sea demons were hiding among them. If you go now, there will be a large number of sea demons blocking your way. Han Fei smiled contemptuously. It doesn't matter. In any case, I've already killed over 100 sea spirits, so why would I care about killing a few more? Everyone, a raven flew by. Wow, this is Han Fei. Han Fei, do you need a ride? Han Fei laughed. That's unnecessary. I don't care about the battle in the rear. You can fight however you want. I'm going to transcend the tribulation. After that, before young Shu Man and the others called out, Han Fei swished and disappeared from everyone's sight like a stream of light. Someone from the Blue Smoke tribe sighed. The strong are really strong. There's no reason to cross the Dark Water, because no one can beat him. Young Shu Man shook her head. Yes, when you reach a certain level, the number is meaningless. Even if all the sea spirits in the Dark Water join forces, they're no match for Han Fei. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1191. Han Fei's speed was not very fast. This so-called Dark Water area was actually a relatively large geographical area and an extremely complex undersea forest pattern. So many sea demons could hide here. In other words, because of the Fearless Barrier, many sea demons would choose to break through to the sea spirit realm in the Dark Water area after crossing the Fearless Barrier. Similarly, in addition to the human race and the Sky Clan, the Insect Clan and the Tree Demon would also take root in the Dark Water area. The two sides often fought against each other in secret. Therefore, the Dark Water area was actually extremely rich in resources, which was very suitable for training. This was also the tacit understanding between the Sea Clan and the Shuimu Heaven. This was a trial ground for the sea spirits or law enforcers of both sides. Puff! 7 spiked spears pierced over from multiple directions, but it was a sea spider. It seemed to see that Han Fei was alone and not fast, so it attacked Han Fei. The space around Han Fei twisted, and he disappeared without a trace. The sea spider suddenly shrank its claws, knowing that it was not good, and hurriedly tried to escape. You want to run away after fighting? Aren't you not giving me any face? Puff, puff, puff. At that moment, a large number of poisons sprayed out from the back of the sea spider. However, something horrifying happened. Han Fei didn't even dodge, but walked to its front with a smile. Wait, I can't move. Han Fei clicked his tongue. Thank you for your poison. Just now, Han Fei felt that the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect moved and officially entered the level 50 level. From this moment on, the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect was equivalent to a hidden fisher insect. It was a pity that this level was still a little low in Han Fei's eyes. However, Han Fei didn't panic at all. It was not that Little Gold and the 9-tailed mantis shrimp were growing slowly, but that he was growing too fast. His second purpose in coming to the Shuimu Heaven was to raise the 9-tailed mantis shrimp and the others to the law enforcer realm. At that time, a group of legendary contractual spiritual beasts in the law enforcer realm wouldn't be buried. However, the body of the spider in front of him was trembling, and its soul was in fear. After its soul was controlled, it felt that its vitality was also rapidly disappearing. Han Fei stared at the spider for a while. Seeing that its body was shrinking rapidly, he immediately stopped stealing lives. Pooh! After killing the sea spider with one slash, Han Fei frowned slightly. How did I learn the heaven-stealing technique into the life-stealing technique? Most importantly, he didn't even know how long his lifespan was. Anyway, the conversion rate doesn't seem to be very high. Han Fei was helpless. He wasn't planning to be like Li Tianshan, sucking people dry for no reason. Who knew if anyone was watching him at this moment? In his heart, the old turtle's voice resounded. Boy, this is a great technique. Although it doesn't seem to be of much use to you at the moment, it is still a life-prolonging divine technique. What are you trying to achieve by hiding it? Han Fei sneered in his heart. Don't you know what I'm guarding against? Han Fei discovered that these reincarnated experts could devour other people's vitality. For example, the Thug Patriarch had forcibly swallowed the vitality of the second patriarch of the Zhang family, which made his own strength rise to a higher level. For example, when this old turtle first appeared, the peak-level explorer could only be slaughtered by him. Most of his vitality was taken away in an instant. It could be seen that the stronger the person, the more unconventional means they had. Although this heaven-stealing art was extremely powerful, he didn't have a clear perception of vitality yet. Therefore, Han Fei didn't know where the vitality he stole went. If these vitality were eaten by the old turtle again, wouldn't he be raising a tiger in his bosom? Han Fei said, "Shut up. Don't even think about the vitality. Otherwise, don't blame me for trying to kill you." The old turtle said in a low voice, "How can I covet your little vitality? I'm immortal." Han Fei shouted, "Shut up, immortal my ass." On his way, he killed hundreds of ignorant creatures. Finally, he saw the first tree demon after 100,000 kilometers. It was a weird tree demon rooted in the dark water. It was more than 300 meters tall. It didn't have many leaves, and its body was dark green. Because the branches were twisted, it gave a scary first impression. In his eyes, information emerged. Name: Fearless Tree Demon. Introduction. This is an intelligent spiritual plant bred from the fallen roots of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree. It has an inherited combat skill, Void Divine Spike, which is extremely destructive and comparable to a high-quality divine weapon. When it encounters an invincible strong opponent, it can use its only soul skill, Soul Parasite. Once it succeeds, it can devour the soul of the host and die with the host. Level 76, Quality, Exotic Spiritual Energy, 143664, Realm, Tao-Seeking, Combat Skills, Void Divine Spike, Soul-Devouring Demonic Vine, Soul Parasite, Absorbable. Remarks: Spiritual plant creatures have no demonic heritage. They are all in the Meridian Opening Realm and have no demonic heritage barrier. Han Fei understood the so-called Fearless Barrier when he saw this Fearless Demon Tree. In Han Fei's perception, there were 8 such Fearless Demon Trees within 1,000 kilometers. How many were there within 10,000 kilometers? What about within 100,000 kilometers? Therefore, the so-called barrier referred to these fearless tree demons. If a Tao-seeking expert dared to break into the Dark War port, it was very likely that they would die together with the enemy. Of course, except for experts of the same level, the fearless tree wouldn't care about creatures below the Tao-seeking level. For example, even if it saw a sea spirit, it would probably turn a blind eye to it and leave it to the creatures of the waterwood heaven. Han Fei even wondered if there was a fearless tree demon in the Venerable Realm in this fearless barrier area. In that case, the Sea Clan Venerable probably wouldn't allow him to die with a tree. Would he? Han Fei immediately asked, "Senior, where is the battle ahead?" An old face appeared on the fearless demon tree, and a vine extended in one direction. "Over there." "Hiu." Han Fei sped up this time. There was no need to stay here. It was only a matter of time before he passed the tribulation. Since he was going to do it, He had to do it as soon as possible in case there were endless wars because of him. The front of the fearless barrier was also the end of the sea prairie. At this moment, the grand sun was floating in the sky, and thousands of kilometers away from the sea prairie, the wind was surging and the clouds were surging. Terrifying roars and explosions were echoing nonstop. When Han Fei arrived, countless senses swept over from all over the void. Huh, is this Han Fei? He came quite fast. Is this the new generation of King's servants? He doesn't look very good. Huh, die. All of a sudden, Han Fei saw a spear light piercing through the void. Wherever it passed, the void was shattered and full of red cracks. On the tip of the spear, a big blue bird with thunder patterns was pierced, and there were flashing electric sparks on its body. Someone shouted, "Is there no one in the water with heaven? How can such a low-level creature be on the battlefield? I can kill it with one hand." In Han Fei's perception, a green half-mermaid was standing proudly in the void, wearing a blue and silver scale battlesuit. However, different from the half-mermaids he had seen before, this half-mermaid had turned into a human form and had legs. Except for the characteristics of a mermaid, it was basically no different from a human being. On the battlefield at the front, hundreds of explorers of various clans were standing in the void. On the battlefield, there were a few people standing on the water with Heaven and the Sea Clan side. They seemed to be having some kind of gambling battle. At some point, Yu Chen suddenly appeared beside Han Fei. "You came today?" Yu Chen was speechless. "This guy just fought with me yesterday, but I was punished to come to the fearless barrier yesterday." Just one day later, Han Fei arrived again. Seeing Yu Chen, Han Fei smiled faintly. What a coincidence! What a coincidence! Yu Chen didn't know Han Fei very well. He looked at the battlefield. "Do you know who came to challenge today?" Han Fei looked puzzled. "How would I know?" Yu Chen took a breath. "People from the royal city are here. They just arrived today. The people you see now are all the top heavenly talents of the royal city. They came here to force you to fight." Han Fei wondered, "Force me to fight?" Yu Chen nodded. "Yesterday, you killed more than 100 Sea Spirit Realm powerhouses in the Flame Sea Array, vowed to transcend a tribulation, and are rumored to be a king's servant candidate. The royal city must pay attention to you." Han Fei frowned. "How was the battle going?" Yu Chen shrugged and said, "As you can see, the Shuamu Heaven has lost 2 battles in a row. The Thunder Sparrow, a junior peak-level explorer, was killed by the enemy with 1 shot." Han Fei took a breath. "How strong is that person?" Before Yu Chen answered, the half-mermaid stepped in the air, holding a blue spear, and looked down at the people of the Shamu Heaven. "I heard that there is a peerless heavenly talent in the Shamu Heaven, who is invincible in the same realm and killed more than 100 peak-level sea spirits. I, Yu Wanyu, ranked 89th on the heavenly talent list of the Baibei Royal City, have come to challenge this boastful number 1 heavenly talent of the Shamu Heaven." Bam! A 6-legged worm blasted the water surface. This worm had a strange shape. It had 6 limbs, stood like a human, and carried 2 irregularly shaped sledgehammers with both limbs. The worm shouted, "Scumbag from the royal city, I'll blow you up with my sledgehammers." As it spoke, the worm's sledgehammers jumped into the sky and spun crazily. Like a dragon sucking water, seawater poured into a pillar and soared into the sky. Clouds rolled in all directions, and in the mist, Han Fei saw a rotating mountain falling from the sky. Although it was not as powerful as the sacrificing punch, it was much stronger than the 9 Mansions Dragon Seal. The force of this blow could reach 100 waves. However, Yu Wanyu smiled contemptuously. "As I said, I am a powerhouse on the heavenly talent list of the royal city. On the heavenly talent list, everyone can fight above their level. How dare a peak-level law enforcer come here? Are you looking down on me? Go to hell." Chapter 1192. Han Fei looked indifferent. He had already judged the strength of Yu Wanyu. It was proficient in spear techniques and possessed a certain degree of armor-piercing power. However, it did not involve the laws of time, so it was not considered very strong. If they were in the same realm, this person should not be a match for Zhang Xuanyu. Of course, this was not the time to make assumptions. No matter what Han Fei said, this person's real combat power was still very strong. On Shuemu Heaven's side, someone frowned. The defensive power of the hammer is so strong that Yu Wanyu might not be able to shake it. An insect shouted, "Big hammer, as long as you have enough strength, you can smash through anything." On the sea demon's side, someone smiled contemptuously. The insect race is just like the insect race. They never have enough brains. Even if he had power, he had to be able to use it. With such a mighty momentum, does it think that it has cultivated a lock-on skill? Yu Wanyu grinned and said in a low voice, "You dare to be arrogant with such little strength." The spear pierced through the sky, and the surrounding tides rose up. Under the vast waves, it looked like a water column condensed in the seawater, and the spear pierced through the sky. However, in Han Fei's eyes, this move was an application of arrays. Among the sea demons, there were still people who played with array formations. Bang! The terrifying collision of the attacks and the violent explosion set off huge waves within 100 miles. Water splashed all over the sky. Taking advantage of the roaring waves, Yu Wanyu stepped into the void, and a black seal appeared on the spear in his hand. A spear thrust out, and two spear shadows pierced through the waves and the void, directly striking at the divine soul. Pooh! Small holes appeared one after another on Chong Dachui's body, and dark green blood sprayed out. "Sledgehammer, be careful." Yu Wanyu disdainfully appeared in front of Chong Dachui. With a casual wave of a spear, it turned into a 100-meter shadow in midair and directly pierced through Chong Dachui, causing him to fall into the sea. "Bastard! I'm going to eat him! Damn fish! Fight me if you have the guts." On the sea race's side, someone chuckled and said, "Yu Wanyu, how about I trade with you?" As if he didn't hear it, Yu Wanyu shouted proudly, "Where are the heavenly talents of Shimu Heaven? Where was Han Fei? If there's really no other choice, a junior explorer can also come out and fight." A member of the sky race shouted in a low voice, "Why do we need geniuses to deal with you? This bird will tear you apart with one claw." Someone shouted in a low voice, "Don't be impulsive. This kid's real combat ability has reached the level of an explorer. This provocation is just to exhaust our strength." Yu Wanyu grinned. A straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. If we hadn't heard that a prodigy had appeared in Shumu Heaven, why would we rush over from Royal City? In the distance, there was a woman's lazy voice. "TSK, if there's no one in the water with sky that can be used, then we'll kill them one by one. I heard that Han Fei defeated 100 people alone. Why don't I have a try?" The person who spoke was wearing a colorful dress and had a beautiful appearance. Han Fei immediately realized that this was not a half-mermaid, but an orthodox mermaid. Han Fei's pupils constricted. "There are mermaids in the capital?" Yu Chen nodded slightly. "There are merfolk. However, there weren't many of them. Do you want to fight? They came here on purpose to heavily injure you before your tribulation. In fact, they won't underestimate you at all." Han Fei smiled. "Sure, why not? You want to seriously injure me with just these few people? They're underestimating me too much." On Shuemu Heaven's side, the various clans roared to fight. Some insects dragged the broken body of the insect Sledgehammer, angry and restless. A bird shouted, "Knowing that a battle is coming, why didn't any top heavenly talents come?" In the human camp, a middle-aged woman, dressed in a bright red battle suit, holding a longbow in her hand, was about to step into the battlefield. "I'm afraid this battle is not small. The rear is just preparing for war. This battle, Before the woman finished speaking, a roar sounded in the sky. "I heard that a top heavenly talent from Sea Demon Royal City wants to fight. How can Han Fei, refuse?" Bam! Under everyone's gaze, above the sea, 9 dragons came out of the water, and Han Fei stood proudly on the head of the water dragon in front of him. Behind him, 8 dragons followed, roaring and diving into the water, vivid and lifelike like real dragons. And Han Fei himself was shining with golden light, facing the scorching sun, like a god of war walking out of the scorching sun. Speaking of which, Yu Chen was speechless. He just asked Han Fei if he wanted to fight or not, and this guy already rushed out? The problem was, if you want to fight, just fight. Why do you have to be so fancy? The human beings, the Sky Clan, and the Insect Clan at the front, when they saw Han Fei roaring from the sea, couldn't help but be stunned. Is this the Han Fei I know? If you want to come, just come. What are you doing? On the Sea Clan side, as soon as Han Fei appeared, the void trembled. One Tao-seeking state powerhouse after another walked out of the void. There was even a huge mantis shrimp that emerged from the bottom of the water. It was 10,000 meters long and had a shiny carapace, appearing more than 800 kilometers away. Walala! Han Fei's pupils constricted, and he saw waves rising on the sea. An incomparably huge yellow creature with a hint of red appeared on the surface of the water. Its body was huge, more than 10,000 meters long. Its forelimbs were like axes, its claws were like silver spears, and its 16 long claws looked extremely heavy and sharp. The huge blade made Han Fei's blood freeze. In his eyes, information emerged. Name Insect King. Introduction: a creature of the insect clan that grows abnormally and is incompatible with the traditional insect clan. Any powerhouse that could grow into a bug king had extraordinary talent and extremely high intelligence. Because there are so many insects, it is impossible to determine the talent, strength, and combat skills of this insect king. Level 86, quality, legendary, realm, Tao reaching, contains spiritual energy. Combat skills: collectible insect limbs, insect cores, insect eyes, insect armor, insect essence, absorbable. Remarks: insect queens are easy to appear, but insect kings are rare. Han Fei immediately took a breath. The insect clan had 28 venerables, 27 insect queens, and only one insect king. From this ratio, Han Fei knew how terrifying this thing was. However, Han Fei was surprised to find that the demon purification pot could now read the information of venerable creatures. Although some of the information still couldn't be read, at least he could see the level of this insect king. Level 86, according to the classification of levels, wasn't at the peak of the intermediate venerable state. Suddenly, Han Fei's 9 water dragons looked like 9 jumping fish. Compared with the huge and ferocious insect king, they were not beautiful at all. Han Fei was speechless. Wait, why did you come out at this time? Venerables are our trump cards. Now that you've come out, who dares to fight? However, the insect king turned its head, and Han Fei didn't know if its 2 eyes, which were hundreds of meters long, were looking at him. Anyway, it was looking at him. Han Fei, the insect king said, "I'm Sea Conqueror. You go and kill them." In fact, both the Sea Clan and the Shuemu Heaven were waiting for Han Fei. Han Fei was the protagonist of this battle. Therefore, as soon as Han Fei appeared, the people of both sides appeared one after another. The Insect King had expressed its intention clearly. Since the other side already had a venerable, then it should come out and help. However, what the Insect King didn't know was that its appearance had accidentally destroyed the pretentious image that Han Fei had deliberately created. Han Fei saw that his 9 dragons out on water had been robbed by the Insect King. Immediately, a terrifying image of the sky, dissecting finger appeared in his mind. Immediately, the infinity water fused with the sacrificing punch, turned into a void finger, and pointed at Yuanyu. This finger contained all of Han Fei's energy and spiritual energy. Its strength was so terrifying that wherever the finger passed, the void shattered inch by inch. Han Fei shouted, "I heard that there are many heavenly talents in the Sea Clan's royal city. I wonder who could take a finger from me?" As he spoke, Han Fei opened his mouth and swallowed. The energy and spiritual energy from all directions shrouded him, making his body glow, which was very scary. However, most of the strong masters were a little speechless. Who the hell did you learn this from? Do you have to point at people with your finger? The point is that when you point at people with your finger, that's the power condensed from one finger. But you drew a big finger that was a kilometer long. Who do you want to kill? Who can you kill? Yuanyu was shocked by Han Fei's powerful move. However, when he saw the big finger spanning a kilometer, he couldn't help but be a little speechless. This big finger seems to be useless except for being big. Ha ha ha! Is this the Han Fei who can fight 100 alone? Yu laughed, his face full of sarcasm. I've never seen such poor use of energy in my life. How could such a guy be a match for my spear? Not to mention Yu. Even the creatures on the side of the water with heavens were a little dumbfounded. Some insects were speechless. Such a big finger, but it's useless. A white-headed sea eagle was speechless. Are you sure this person is Han Fei? Can he kill a person with this blow? A human powerhouse shook his head. In terms of energy and spiritual energy alone, this giant finger is indeed shocking. However, his control is too poor. No way. Can this Han Fei really kill 100 people alone? Yu shook his spear, and with a puff, a sharp green light pierced a big hole in Han Fei's big finger. Yu stood proudly. The so-called heavenly talent turns out to be just like this. In this case, go to hell. Just when Yu's momentum soared and he was about to attack, he saw Han Fei raise his finger, and with a bang, he nodded at Yu's head. Yu. Suddenly, a peak-level explorer's heart trembled. There must be something wrong with this big finger. Behind the Sea Clan, the mermaid who had just spoken shouted, "Retreat." Someone keenly noticed that in the huge finger mark, 3 meters in front of Yu, an inch-long little finger suddenly condensed. Yu was shocked. Where did this little finger come from? Unfortunately, she didn't give him much time to think, nor did she allow him to think. That little finger exploded with a loud bang. Rumble, a huge mushroom cloud and a big hole in the deep sea covered a radius of more than 50 kilometers in the blink of an eye. The terrifying explosive force directly swept hundreds of kilometers around, and ring-shaped huge waves caused a monstrous tsunami. In such a violent explosion, Han Fei chuckled and stepped into the waves. The infinity water exploded at such a close range. Even Han Fei himself would be injured, let alone a heavenly talent who couldn't even enter the top 10 in the Sea Clan Royal City. In the explosion waves, Han Fei also saw Yu, who was covered in a broken conch shell, tried to escape with heavy injuries. Swish. Han Fei appeared directly next to Yu. The law of gravity descended, and he clenched his big hand in the void. Bam! 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 The big void hand slapped Yu back and forth on the surface of the sea, as if he were swatting a fly. With just a few slaps, the already shattered conch shell was directly smashed into powder. When the wind calmed down, a void chain wrapped around Yu, who was dying and limp like a dead fish, appeared in everyone's sight. Han Fei sneered. The so-called top heavenly talent of the royal city turns out to be a piece of trash who can't even take one of my fingers. Fine, let me ask you again, who can take one of my punches? The third update. Asking for votes. Nothing else. I'm so busy that I have to slip away. End of this chapter. Chapter 1193. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. On the Shuamu Sky's side, the creatures who thought Han Fei was not strong just now all widened their eyes. What was this? Someone wondered. If he could use such a terrifying finger at the beginning, why did he make a 1,000-meter-long giant finger? A bug sighed. Is it because it looks good? As soon as this remark came out, all the creatures were dumbfounded. It seemed that this was the only explanation. Otherwise, it didn't make sense. Of course, if it was the sea demons, it would be a different story. Immediately, someone yelled, Han Fei of the human clan, you're so despicable. Let go of our experts and have a fair fight. Huh, let them go. Han Fei was surprised, glanced at the half-mermaid who spoke, and then at Yu who seemed to be stunned by his attack, and said leisurely, let them go? Of course. I don't believe that such a heavenly talent is not worth 100,000 spiritual fruits. Give me the money and let them go. The sea demons, a bug, laughed. Yes, I'll let him go for 100,000 spiritual fruits. Someone yelled, you have to add ultra-quality divine weapons. A Tao-seeking state demon snorted. You're Han Fei, right? Don't make a mistake. Puff. As soon as the Tao-seeking state demon said that, Snowmorn was swung out. Under the surprised gaze of countless people, Han Fei cut Yu into 2 halves. Han Fei pointed his sword at the big demon and scolded. You want me to let them go without giving you money? I'll kill them. Suddenly, the bug shouted, "Hey, wait a little longer. They'll really give you money." Han Fei glanced back. "Oh, really? That's a pity. Don't panic. Let me catch another person." In the distance, a group of peak-level sea spirits were eyeing Han Fei covetously, but they didn't rush to fight him. Yu Wangyo's original purpose was to test Han Fei's strength. However, it seemed that Han Fei's strength hadn't been tested, but Han Fei's bragging. At this moment, Han Fei's face was all dark, and he was exasperated. Why? Didn't they say that the heavenly talents of the royal city are very strong? Why isn't there anyone who can fight? While talking, Han Fei took out Yu Wangyo's sea-swallowing seashell. Then, he stuffed it into Forge the Universe. Han Fei pointed at the hundreds of powerhouses of the Sea clan opposite him. His eyes wandered and finally fell on several groups of peak-level law enforcers. If there was no accident, it was very likely that this group of people wanted to ambush him or the powerhouses who wanted to undergo the tribulation together with him. Faced with such a situation, Han Fei felt that he should kill these people first. It was fine to undergo the tribulation tomorrow. On the Sea Clan side, Han Fei heard someone speaking in the Sea Demon language. "We haven't tested Han Fei's strength yet. The finger, just now, doesn't seem to be his own power. Should we test him again?" Someone responded, "It's best to wound or even kill Han Fei before the tribulation." However, this person was definitely not weak. He couldn't fight him alone, so he had to think of a way to have him challenge a group battle. Or let the Tao-seeking realm powerhouses take action and forcefully suppress it. A woman transmitted her voice. "Let me fight him first. I'm going to transcend the tribulation on this trip. If I'm no match for him, I'll transcend the tribulation during the battle and kill him directly." Han Fei's eyes suddenly flashed. "Do you think I can't understand you in the Sea Demon language? I used to live in the 10,000 Demon Valley." Han Fei shouted, "I heard that the law enforcers on the opposite side are all from the royal city. Today I, Han Fei, want to be defeated. Let's fight the powerhouses of the same realm together." Iyuchen, the insect king, the creatures of the various races. A bug buzzed and shouted, "Han Fei, don't underestimate these people. They are really strong." Among all these people, the only one who had fought Han Fei head-on was Iyuchen. He knew how terrifying Han Fei was when he went all out. Iyuchen said, "Don't be careless. The heavenly talents of the royal city are not that weak. The opponent is a mermaid clan powerhouse, and his bloodline and heritage are not weak." Han Fei smiled. "Got it." And in the eyes of the Sea Clan, Han Fei's words and deeds were almost boundless. They were all heavenly talents. Who was convinced? "Do you want to challenge us all?" A female half-mermaid came riding a blue shark, holding two conical spears in her hands. This weapon was very rare. The tip of the spear was half a meter long, slender, and smooth. The woman shouted, "Being of the White Shell Royal City, peak-level sea spirit. Han Fei, do you think you're invincible just because you defeated Yu Wanyu by luck?" Han Fei pretended to frown. "Isn't this the woman who is going to kill me with the tribulation in the battle?" However, Han Fei didn't panic at all. Wasn't this an opportunity for him? Since the other party had already made a plan, he might as well take advantage of the situation and kill her first. Han Fei raised his head and said contemptuously, "Just you? Who gave you the confidence to challenge me alone?" With that said, Han Fei pointed at the Sea Clan powerhouse in the distance. "I gave you a chance, but you couldn't even seize it. You're really a bunch of useless people. You're as timid as a crab. You think you're the top heavenly talents of the royal city?" However, he heard someone shout, arrogant and conceited. Being once killed an explorer and killed a heavenly talent of the insect clan 7 times in the Sea of Flames. How dare you criticize her? A insect powerhouse immediately shouted angrily, "Nonsense! How can a heavenly talent of the insect clan be defeated?" A large group of insect clan powerhouses was furious. 7 battles and 7 kills? That's a slap in the face. However, some insects' eyes flickered. This woman is indeed not to be underestimated. The shark under her feet is called a thunder fire blue shark. It can swallow clouds and summon thunder and lightning. It's quite domineering. Han Fei didn't care at all and stepped out. Since no one wants to fight me, I can only kill you first. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei moved like a flash of lightning. In less than 0.01 seconds, he had already used the draw technique to attack the wave that Bei Ying had just stood on. Bam! However, a cloud of blue mist spread out, and within a radius of 3,000 meters, the mist was rising. Bei Ying's figure appeared in all directions, in the air, on the water, at the bottom of the sea, and next to Han Fei's ears. Bei Ying giggled. Huh, I know you're fast, so I was fake from the beginning. Now that you've entered my blue lightning illusion, let's see how you can get out. Boom! All of a sudden, a bolt of lightning struck straight at Han Fei's head. Outside, everyone saw that on the sea, a huge round cover of smoke appeared, covering more than 3,000 meters. Someone said solemnly, "It's the power of a domain." This woman has not only mastered an illusion domain, but also a lightning technique. Crack! Crack! Ice blue lightning and fire burst out in this illusion domain. The sound rumbled, violent and incessant. Every time the lightning rumbled, the eyelids of many insect clan powerhouses twitched wildly. The heavenly talents of the insect clan were most afraid of tribulation. In their view, no one who could master the power of lightning was weak. However, in the blue mist, when Han Fei felt the first bolt of so-called lightning, he almost laughed out loud. Is this lightning? Are you out of your mind? If this could be counted as lightning, he could sit in the lightning and strike him for a day and a night without running away. Of course, on the surface, Han Fei was attacking in all directions violently with golden fist marks. When Han Fei shattered the void and blocked the sea, the eyes of Shui Mutian and the sea demons flickered. Everyone was wondering why the battle was so fierce. After all, it was the domain ability of a peak-level sea spirit and the talent ability of a Thunderfire Blue Shark. Even an explorer couldn't see through it. Roar, roar. Han Fei was roaring and his body cracked. He seemed to be struggling to resist this hellish bombardment of lightning and fire. And among the infinite clones, Bei Ying held 2 spears and broke through the void. The sky was full of spear shadows, making it difficult for people to distinguish them. However, as soon as Bei Ying made this move, she suddenly saw strange patterns spreading under Han Fei's feet, who was bathed in lightning and fire. After setting up a breath-concealing array and a concealment array, Han Fei raised his head and smiled. Have you had enough fun? If you have, it's my turn. Hiss! How is this possible? Bei Ying was still escaping among the clones, but she suddenly found that she couldn't fuse with any of them. Han Fei smiled contemptuously. In front of me, you want to control a clone with a bit of your soul? Are you dreaming? Bam! 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 Hundreds of clones were shattered in an instant, and Han Fei's figure had disappeared in place. Roar! It sounded like a dragon's roar. With a deafening roar, the blue mist collapsed. Everyone saw that half of Bei Ying's body was cut off. Only half of his body was left, and he burned his blood to escape. In an instant, a large number of heavenly talents of the insect clan roared, "Good job! Ha ha! A heavenly talent of the royal city? You can't even withstand a single blow. No wonder he's a top heavenly talent of the Shimu heaven." On the other side, many people's faces turned cold, and someone said solemnly, "Not good." Han Fei's strength. Han Fei raised his saber and stood in front of Bei Ying. "Do you think you can run away?" Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. He thought to himself, "Didn't you King say you want to transcend the tribulation in battle? Damn you, hurry up and cross." Bei Ying gritted his teeth, and in the void, a thunderfire shark swooped over. Taking this opportunity, Bei Ying looked up at the sky and roared. At that moment, Han Fei could feel that Bei Ying was crazily increasing his strength. However, Han Fei had seen this kind of situation many times in the reincarnation cycle. Bei Ying was so seriously injured that it was impossible for him to transcend the tribulation. Therefore, he tried to use this temporary strength to help him fight again. Rumble. Black clouds swept, thunder and fire suddenly appeared, and electric arcs began to spread in the sky. Someone roared, Not good. Han Fei. This person is transcending the tribulation. Kill him quickly. Several explorers shouted in a low voice. This is a way to perish together with the enemy. Han Fei, come out. Han Fei tore the Thunderfire blue shark apart with his hands, and blood splashed in the sky. Covered in blood, Han Fei grinned hideously and pointed at the sky. It's not my own heavenly tribulation. What can a minor tribulation of others do to me? Everyone was speechless. Why the F***CK are you still pretending a time like this? Baying dragged half of his body and rushed over, shouting coldly, "Let's die together!" Han Fei smiled slightly, glanced at him indifferently, and punched out. The sacrificing punch completely broke out, and Bai Ying couldn't resist it at all. With just one punch, Bai Ying was crushed into nothing. However, although Bai Ying was dead, the lightning didn't stop. Kacha, first update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1194. Crack. In the exclamations, a blue arc of lightning fell from the sky. Han Fei stood on the surface of the sea as if he didn't feel it, letting the lightning hit him. At that moment, on Han Fei's arms, in his eyes, and all over his body, electric arcs flashed. Hoo. Whether it was Shui Mutian's side or the Sea Demon's side, they all heard the sound of heavy breathing in the field. Someone exclaimed, "Hiss! Is he swallowing the power of the heavenly tribulation?" A bug exclaimed, "Oh my God, can heavenly tribulations be swallowed?" A big bird was horrified. "He's crazy. He's a lunatic." On the other hand, the Sea Demons all looked solemn. Sure enough, Han Fei's reputation was well-deserved. No one who could fight 100 enemies alone was weak. Although Han Fei's performance was too flashy, he was still a strong expert. In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle's voice sounded. The so-called lightning is just a test of cultivation. Since it is a test, of course, there are benefits. That is, lightning itself is the purest kind of energy. It's a pity that the lightning you snatched is too weak. If you are strong enough in the future, you may be able to snatch the real supreme lightning. That lightning can be as powerful as 100 years of body tempering. Han Fei sneered in his heart. Then we'll talk about it in the future. Boom! Another thick lightning bolt fell. With a crack, Han Fei's body was suddenly covered with cracks, and pale golden blood flowed out. Who Han Fei was still swallowing the power of the lightning crazily. At this moment, electric arcs were crisscrossing in his limbs, flesh, and bones. Han Fei didn't care at all. He pointed at the Sea Demon's heavenly talent and shouted in astonishment, "What can a mere heavenly tribulation do to me? Who dares to come in and fight me again?" Boom! Another lightning bolt fell straight, and Han Fei was so shocked that he almost sat on the surface of the sea. However, in the lightning pillar 7 or 8 meters thick, Han Fei bent over and cackled creepily. So, this is how it feels to pass a tribulation. Is this the heavenly tribulation? Everyone, in the void, the corner of Wushang Shue's mouth twitched. I really want to slap him. Jinger said in surprise. What's going on? He actually transcended someone else's tribulation? Does this count as a tribulation? The Worm King's voice rang out. Of course it doesn't count. He didn't transcend someone else's heavenly tribulation. He forcefully swallowed someone else's heavenly tribulation. This child has cultivated an extremely domineering body tempering technique, and he is merely using it to temper his body. Jing, while tens of thousands of living beings were dumbfounded, high up in the 9 heavens, in the Waterwood Fairy Palace, the Life Queen looked at the heavenly void mirror and murmured, "War physique, beast king art, heavenly, ethereal, godly walking art. When did the yin-yang heaven have such a fortuitous encounter?" The old tortoise had just reminded him that heavenly tribulation was also a kind of power. Since he walked the path of body refining, he would not be afraid of heavenly tribulation. Speaking of which, this was indeed the first time that Han Fei had undergone a lightning tribulation. This was the tribulation of ordinary people. However, Bai Ying's third thunderbolt was indeed quite powerful. Han Fei's body went limp, and in an instant, hundreds of cracks appeared on his body, causing him to bleed. However, the war physique was running faster. Han Fei didn't feel that his physique was stronger. Instead, he felt that it would be best if he could push both the war physique and the indestructible body to a new height in one go. At this moment, Han Fei felt that the power in his body had swelled to the point where there was nowhere to vent it. His whole body was red and dripping with blood. Han Fei didn't sit cross-legged but stood on the sea, panting violently. Every breath he took was like a thunderclap, and his blood surged. On the sea demon's side, someone shouted in a low voice, "Not good. This person is a pure body refining cultivator. He's using Bei Ying's heavenly tribulation to cultivate, which means that he hasn't reached the peak of the law enforcer realm. Hurry up and stop him." Ho! The Sea Clan Venerable's heart did a flip, and he looked at a group of peak-level sea spirits. These people had been arranged in advance, intending to injure Han Fei before Han Fei's heavenly tribulation. At this moment, these people felt a chill in their hearts. They looked at each other and stepped out together. A half-mermaid shouted, "Han Fei, don't you want to fight? Then let's fight." A shrimp soldier screamed, "Kill." A 100-meter-long flood dragon roared, "Human, do you dare to fight?" At this time, on the side of the waterwood sky, the creatures had just realized what was going on. Han Fei had just endured someone else's heavenly tribulation, and now 7 peak-level sea spirits appeared. This was too much. A winged insect stood up. "Sea Clan bastard, do you dare to fight?" A giant green gull set off tornadoes. "If you have the guts, come and fight." Ha ha! Suddenly, above the sea, the surging blood caused by Han Fei's breathing began to gradually calm down. Han Fei grinned. "Didn't you want to stop me from transcending the tribulation? Today, I'll give you a chance. I don't refuse anyone in the same realm as me. You can come at me together." In an instant, countless people's faces changed. There were really heavenly talents here. On the side of the Sea Clan, there were still some peak-level sea spirits who were eager to take action, but they were forcibly suppressed. A powerhouse of the Sea Clan shook his head. "Don't worry. No matter what path he takes, he can't survive the tribulation today." 7 peak-level sea spirits attacked at the same time. The giant flood dragon's huge tail slapped, and the law of gravity condensed on its tail. On the spear light of a shrimp soldier, bright red blossomed, and a strange power stimulated the blood in Han Fei's body, trying to devour Han Fei's vitality. A half-mermaid held a blue ball in its hand. When the blue ball bloomed, Han Fei was slightly shocked. Is this the bone transformation spiritual lamp? The kind of weird power that could melt blood and bones. Han Fei twisted his body and instantly avoided the illumination of the bone transformation spiritual lamp. However, even so, a small part of the layer of skin on his body was shown off. At the moment Han Fei flashed away, a layer of frost covered thousands of meters. Han Fei felt that his soul was slightly stagnant. This frost seemed to have the power to freeze the soul. At this moment, a giant tail swung at him, and a spear stabbed at him. Han Fei grinned. "Is this all you've got?" Suddenly, Han Fei stepped into the void and blasted out a sacrificing punch. Whether it was the giant tail or the spear mark, everything that the fist passed through was crushed to pieces. Water luster, fire seed, chirp. With a clear cry of a phoenix, a layer of ice spread 3,000 meters in the void. The frost just now was frozen by the more solid ice. A sea of fire burned the sky, and the surrounding temperature soared by more than 1,000 degrees in an instant. The space was burned and twisted, and a massive amount of white mist was burned out of the sea. It could be clearly seen that in the void ice mist, a sea cucumber was burned out, and its body was twisting at this moment. Puff! In everyone's astonished gaze, a flaming giant mouth opened, chewed the void, and directly swallowed the sea cucumber. The 7 heavenly talents of the Sea Demon King City had just launched an attack, and one of them had already died. Moreover, the way he died was so weird that both Shuai Mutian and the sea demons were a little horrified. What kind of method was this? Light waits. Suddenly, in the sky, a strange sound reverberated, ethereal, like the sound of an immortal. However, the serpent roared, spewed ink-colored venom, tore the sky with its sharp teeth, and whipped at Han Fei with its tail like a metal chain. Someone shouted, "Not good. Close your perception. That sound is weird." Han Fei grinned. "You only know now? Don't you think it's too late?" Han Fei turned around and was already standing in front of the big serpent's head. As he clasped his hands, with a swish, the 100-meter-long body of the big serpent was torn in half by Han Fei. For a time, blood rained down from the sky. Han Fei was like a butcher walking out of a slaughterhouse. He had learned this from the Tiger King. The Tiger King called it momentum. When the 9 sounds vibrated, the shrimp soldier roared and used his shrimp spear as a spear. Sky's sting forbidden technique. Facing this spear, Han Fei held the blood-drinking knife in his hand, and with a swish, the knife light bloomed a kilometer in the void. Huh! Immediately afterward, the phantoms of hundreds of beasts stomped in the void. Only Tao-seeking level demons could resist the roar of the 100 beasts' soul-suppressing roar. The shrimp soldier froze in midair, as if he was dumbfounded. Han Fei unhurriedly pierced it with his knife, injected spiritual energy into its body, and suddenly exploded. In just one round, 3 of the 7 heavenly talents of the Sea Demon King City had died. It wasn't until this moment that the creatures of the water would heavenly clan marveled at Han Fei's strength. A powerhouse of the Sky Clan exclaimed, "What kind of creature is that from the Sky Clan? How can it freeze souls?" A Bug Clan creature asked in surprise, "Where did that fireball come from? Is it an alien fire from the Sea of Flames?" Water Luster and the Fire Spark hovered out like 2 streaks of red and blue light, besieging the half-mermaid who could control the bone transformation spiritual lamp. How could the so-called heavenly talents of the royal city compare to a legendary creature in the same realm? The Fire Spark shook, and the 10-kilometer sea area turned crimson. Water Luster's real talent was water, not ice. At this moment, the seawater rose, and the cage was locked. Everyone, including Han Fei, was surprised to find that Water Luster and the Fire Spark had disappeared, only turning into 2 lights. Water and fire, red and blue light enveloped the half-mermaid. The half-mermaid attacked in panic, but it was useless. In the perception of the experts, they saw that the half-mermaid's body quickly dried up. It wasn't old, but dry. The water in its body seemed to be drained, and it became like a mummy. It was the first time that Han Fei had seen the cooperation of Water Luster and the Fire Spark. They were so terrifying that they drained the half-mermaid's body. Of course, Han Fei also knew that there were 3 more people. They had retreated as soon as the 100 beasts' soul-suppressing roar appeared. Perhaps knowing that Han Fei was extraordinary, the 3 of them attacked again in a triangular formation, surrounding Han Fei and triggering the heavenly tribulation at the same time. At that moment, the 3 of them looked at each other, and their strength skyrocketed. Someone roared, "Han Fei, try to swallow one of our heavenly tribulations." Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1195. Perhaps the Sea Clan had already planned this, so the 3 of them didn't plan to attack Han Fei at first. And for the sake of Han Fei, who was too pretentious and intended to sweep his opponents again and again, he didn't win with speed, so he gave the 3 of them a chance. Of course, it was impossible to say that he didn't see it. He just wanted to see what the 3 of them were up to. However, he hadn't expected that the 3 of them would actually use the heavenly tribulation as a method of attack, just like Beiying. Han Fei immediately sneered. The so-called heavenly talents of the capital only have these tricks up their sleeves? You want to kill me with your tribulation? However, in Han Fei's mind, Wushang Shui said to him via voice transmission, "Why aren't you running? This is the heavenly tribulation of 3 people. Do you really think you're invincible?" Oomph. In the void, a voice berated, "Wushang Shui, this kid wants to fight. Why are you interrupting?" Although all this happened very quickly, Wushang Shui and the others thought that Han Fei had enough time to escape, so they didn't remind him. However, Han Fei didn't intend to escape at all. At this moment, an explorer shouted, "Han Fei, run away!" The three tribulations are overlapping. These people aren't Monarch City's geniuses at all. They're just here to die. Someone shouted, Han Fei, run. The power of the three tribulations can't be underestimated. If you're not careful, you'll be annihilated. A sea creature shouted, Han Fei, aren't you using the lightning tribulation to temper your body? If you have the ability, don't be a coward. Now that you're scared, none of the elites from the White Shell Royal City think highly of you. A half-mermaid sneered. Humph, the top heavenly talent of the Waterwood Heaven? In my opinion, there's an 80% chance that he's risking serious injuries to escape. A bug buzzed. Han Fei, don't listen to them. You can't survive this disaster. Buzz, buzz, buzz. For a time, everyone was talking at the same time. Thunder rumbled in the sky. Waves stacked up. Vortexes appeared, and arcs of electricity crackled. In the midst of the mockery and anxiety, Han Fei suddenly grinned. The tribulation is the power of heaven. One more person is bound to cause accidents. Since you've pulled me in, you've already achieved your goal. Since you're going to die sooner or later, I'll send you off first. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Han Fei's speed was comparable to that of an advanced explorer. In a situation where the three of them could not dodge, the void lines forcibly seized their divine souls. Han Fei grinned coldly. Let me borrow your vitality. When the Thunder Tribulation was about to condense, when the other party revealed his intentions, Han Fei had already taken action. The sixth level of void fishing was originally known as the luck-stealing art, but after deduction, it was named the heaven-stealing art. At present, the most direct effect that Han Fei could use was to steal the vitality of others. Boom! The three men's expressions immediately turned unpleasant. The center of the crab's shell began to turn black for some reason. A venerable was surprised. Hey, the death aura on their bodies suddenly became denser. Hiss! Their life force is rapidly disappearing. Boom! Rumble! 4 bolts of lightning crashed down. It was as if the heavenly tribulation had sensed that there were living beings resisting the lightning tribulation together with it. Therefore, when the first lightning bolt struck, the tribulation clouds of the heavenly tribulation became denser. Ka. Han Fei trembled, and more than 100 cracks appeared on his body. However, these cracks recovered in an instant. Someone was horrified. Han Fei is taking other people's vitality by force. Wushang Shui frowned. It's not the law of time. He's really just robbing. Jing said in surprise. Taking other people's vitality by force? Is this a demonic technique? Wushang Shui shook his head slightly. I don't think so. Otherwise, how could Her Majesty not know about it? On the sea demon's side, a venerable had already roared. He's indeed a demon. No wonder he's a monster. It turns out that he has fallen into the demonic Tao and is taking vitality by force. Jinger shouted, Stinky Prawn, you shut up. Whether Han Fei is a righteous or evil person is our business. It has nothing to do with your Bai Royal City. Having said that, the creatures of the Waterwood Heaven felt a little weird. Has Han Fei really become a demon? The Insect King said in a low voice, whether he is a demon or not, we'll know when Han Fei transcends the tribulation. If he really becomes a demon, the heavenly Tao will not tolerate him and will strike him to death. Ordinary people only had 3 heavenly tribulations, which are often called minor heavenly tribulations. As the old turtle in his body said, the minor heavenly tribulations were very weak and could pass in a nap. However, for ordinary people, this was the most dangerous tribulation they had ever faced in their cultivation. Generally speaking, ordinary people could survive at least 1 lightning bolt, but after being sucked by Han Fei, rumble. When the second lightning bolt fell, he saw the vitality of the 2 people being destroyed and their bodies collapsing. The other big crab's shell was completely broken, but it was not dead yet. And Han Fei's body was cracked like a porcelain doll. He sat cross-legged and activated the indestructible body. Before the 3rd lightning bolt fell, the crab's soul collapsed with a crack. It was sucked to death by Han Fei. However, although this crab had died, the heavenly tribulation was still there. The vitality of the 3 people had been devoured by Han Fei. Who else would the heavenly tribulation look for but Han Fei? Boom! The third lightning bolt fell, and Han Fei was badly mutilated. The people of the waterwood heaven were horrified, and the sea demons were overjoyed. Boom! When the fourth lightning bolt fell, someone exclaimed, "Why are there still lightning bolts? Aren't the 3 lightning bolts gone?" Someone sneered, "Are you stupid? The vitality of those 3 guys was devoured by Han Fei alone. So, to a certain extent, none of these 3 guys are dead. Isn't it 9 lightning bolts when the 3 of them are superimposed?" Someone was stunned. "You can do that." In the blue lightning, half of Han Fei's body was scorched black, but everyone could see that his muscles were wriggling and recovering at a terrifying speed. Jinger said with some disdain, "The vitality he swallowed can only help him resist 2 more lightning bolts at most. He has to rely on himself for more." Wushang Shui glanced at Jinger. "Aren't you very optimistic about him? Don't forget that this is someone else's tribulation, not his own. So, this kind of heavenly tribulation can't hurt him." Whoosh! Whoosh! Han Fei swallowed the power of lightning and the electric arcs in the air into his stomach. Han Fei could feel that the indestructible body and the war body were almost reaching the bottleneck. However, this energy was not enough. As soon as it entered his body, it was ground into unknown elements by the indestructible body. If it weren't for the heavenly tribulation, Han Fei would have used the energy fruit. Boom! Boom! Under countless gazes, Han Fei's flesh and blood were melting, burning, peeling, and growing. Whether on the Shuimu heaven side or on the sea demon side, countless people were shocked. This was the first time they had seen someone cultivate by swallowing a heavenly tribulation. Besides, Han Fei's body-tempering method was too terrifying. He didn't take his life seriously at all. Of course, the price of this cultivation method was too high. Someone frowned. "This cultivation method will seriously injure him first, won't it?" A Tao-seeking state demon said, "Although this kid is using the heavenly tribulation to temper his body, the heavenly tribulation is not so easy to resist. His vitality is fluctuating, and his flesh and blood have melted several times. Even if he survives this tribulation, he will definitely be seriously injured." Boom! When the last thick lightning bolt hit Han Fei, the blue lightning let out a creepy but terrifying sound. Han Fei grinned. "Is there anyone else who wants to fight?" When the lightning dissipated, a scorched figure was sitting cross-legged on the sea, his chest and abdomen bulging, breathing like a tide. Not only was the surrounding energy and spiritual energy constantly being swallowed, but Han Fei was also full of vitality. Huh? Where did he get such a strong vitality? Someone was puzzled. Logically speaking, even if the vitality of the 3 people was completely deprived, they wouldn't be able to support Han Fei to survive the 9 bolts of lightning. However, not only did Han Fei survive, but he even had vitality left. Jing, and Wushang Shui looked at each other. Did Han Fei use the spring of life? Only in this way could it be explained. A drop of the spring of life was enough for Han Fei to survive the 9 bolts of lightning. Gotcha! When Han Fei's scorched flesh collapsed, the new flesh was still full of cracks. At this moment, Han Fei's aura was flickering. "Is there anyone else who wants to fight? I've given you a chance. This is the best time to kill me. If you miss this chance, I'll be the one hunting you." The mermaid who was the first to clamor stopped talking at this moment. She was a heavenly talent, but it didn't mean that she didn't know what to do. At this moment, Han Fei's killing intent was at its peak. Some Tao-seeking state demons seemed to have noticed this. Although Han Fei was full of cracks, he had swallowed more than a dozen bolts of lightning. If he could die easily, he wouldn't have clamored. A Tao-seeking state demon shouted, "Don't worry about him. Although he is seriously injured, we don't know how strong he is. In this case, let's suppress him and force him to go through the tribulation." Beep, beep, beep. The conch sounded, and a sea demon shouted, "Let's go." On the side of the waterwood heaven, the Sky Clan immediately ran around, screaming, "Everyone, prepare for battle." A big insect from the waterwood heaven shouted, "The tribulation battle begins." Han Fei's heart did a flip. Shu Xiaoman had told him about the tribulation battle. That was to say, in order to prevent human masters from going through the tribulation, the Sea Clan launched a war during the tribulation, trying to shake the minds of those who were going through the tribulation with the death of all kinds of creatures. When the tribulation battle began, what he could do was to go through the tribulation as soon as possible. Otherwise, the more tragic things he saw, the more unsettled he would be, which would affect the success rate of the tribulation. The earlier he passed the tribulation, the more normal the battle would be. Then, their attention would return to Han Fei. They would try to cast a shadow on Han Fei's path after he passed the tribulation, giving birth to inner demons and hindering Han Fei from seeking the Tao. However, he heard Jing Er's voice transmission. All right, hurry up and transcend the tribulation. After all, the battle before the tribulation had always been a trial battle. This time, so many people tried to stop Han Fei before he passed the tribulation because they heard that he was a peerless heavenly talent. But now that it had been confirmed that Han Fei was indeed as strong as he was rumored to be, how could a real heavenly talent of the royal city take action so easily? It was really unwise to fight with others at the peak of the law enforcer realm. There would be other opportunities in the future. Kill. At that moment, there was a burst of fighting sounds, and the scene was extremely lively. Third, asking for tickets. Do. Tomorrow, end of this chapter. Chapter 1196. In Han Fei's perception, a battle had begun hundreds of kilometers away. Behind him, the insect race and the sky race who were originally watching the show spread out like the tide, killing in all directions. There were 3 types of battles in the Dark War port. The first was the battles between the strong, the fearless barrier, and the third was the chaotic battles in the dark waters. During the tribulation, the Waterwood Sky Alliance's army had already charged into the dark water domain. Among the Sea Clan, all beings below the Tao-seeking realm charged into the fearless barrier. When the real battle began, the level of one's strength would determine the type of opponent one would face. The fearless tree's target had always been Tao-seeking great demons. As soon as the battle started, Han Fei turned serious and looked back, only to see that the Insect King was still lying on the surface of the sea. The Insect King growled, "Tribulation Transcendence." Water Luster said telepathically, "Master, we can also go through the tribulation." The voice of the Fire Seed appeared, "Master, once we pass the tribulation, some of the restrictions of the sea-quelling painting will be lifted." Water Luster and the others were just trapped by the sea-quelling painting. Otherwise, he would have successfully transcended the tribulation. Han Fei was thinking, this time his own tribulation has already caused such a big commotion. If the number of tribulations suddenly increased from 1 to 6, who knew what would happen? However, it seemed that Punishing Blade and the others could only undergo tribulation in Shuimu Heaven, right? Once they returned to the Yin-Yang Heaven, the 5 of them would have to undergo tribulations consecutively. It would be strange if they didn't find out. At that time, as long as the big clans discovered him, they would definitely know that he had appeared, and they would definitely cause trouble. Han Fei gritted his teeth and replied, "I have my own considerations. I'll pass this tribulation first." Of course, Han Fei didn't dare to ask the Punishing Saber and the others to go through the tribulation together. After all, they were the 5 legendary creatures. Han Fei shouted in a low voice, "Bug King, please protect me." Han Fei stood proudly on the surging sea, looking into the void, and his aura began to rise crazily. It wasn't the first or second time that he had seen someone transcend a tribulation, and it wasn't the first time that he had helped others transcend a tribulation. How strong would an ordinary person's 3rd stage lightning tribulation be? Han Fei knew it very well. As long as he had enough time, what was a mere 3 heavenly tribulations? Moreover, it wasn't as if he had done nothing during those 4 years in Wind and Rain Village. He had drawn more than 100 large-scale formation diagrams. Han Fei wasn't afraid of a heavenly tribulation. Of course, Han Fei was going to break through the 4th level of the indestructible body in one fell swoop. If the starlight immortal body was said to gradually improve the physique, first refining the body, then refining the flesh and blood, then refining the bones and tendons. Now he had completed all three. Even his bones were glowing, and his blood was faintly golden. The fourth level was the mastery of the indestructible body and the mastery of it. The difficulty of breaking through was evident. Come, as Han Fei roared. The spiritual energy within 300 kilometers swept over crazily. Feeling that the spiritual energy was not enough, Han Fei waved his hand, and hundreds of thousands of kilograms of spiritual spring sprayed into the air, turned into billowing spiritual energy, and was absorbed into his body. Rumble, wung wung. In the sky, the tribulation clouds were densely packed, and within a radius of 300 miles, day turned into night in an instant. Black clouds covered the sea like a black dragon turning over, blocking out most of the light. Hiss! Beside the Bug King, many bug race explorers exclaimed, "This tribulation cloud is huge." On the sea demon's side, a venerable roared, "Past the tribulation." At that moment, a total of 5 heavenly talents of the Sea Clan were passing the tribulation together. In an instant, the tribulation cloud in the sky was indeed dispersed. In the blink of an eye, the tribulation cloud that was 300 kilometers long was reduced by half. Someone frowned. The bigger the tribulation cloud, the more powerful it seems, right? However, this time they chose to pass the tribulation in such a close place. Do they want to rob the tribulation? Jing sneered. What are you thinking? Are they helping to rob the tribulation? Wu Shangshui frowned slightly. Wait, if the other heavenly talents are not weak and really rob Han Fei of half of the tribulation's power, will he pass the tribulation completely? Jing Er's face stiffened. She calculated with her fingers and looked up at the sky. Suddenly, Jing said to him via voice transmission, "Han Fei, you can't let them rob you of your tribulation. You're different from others. You're a body cultivator. As long as you pass the tribulation, you can still become an explorer. However, without enough heavenly tribulation, it won't help your cultivation." Han Fei twisted his neck. "Rob me of my heavenly tribulation? Are they qualified?" At that moment, a golden giant stood proudly on the surface of the sea. The golden giant pointed at the void, and an invincible fighting intent was completely activated. The golden light was dazzling. "Rob me of my tribulation? Why don't you take a look at yourself?" After that, Han Fei held the blood-drinking knife and roared in a beast voice, "Today I, Han Fei, have a knife that can cut the heavenly tribulation and destroy all enemies. Are there any enemies here?" Boom! When the path of invincibility appeared, the tribulation cloud in the sky rolled out for thousands of kilometers. The arcs of blue lightning were like the shadows of dragons, roaring incessantly. What? The path of invincibility? On the Shui Mu sky's side, the insect king suddenly raised its head. It was guarding the place, but it was also shocked. Wu Shangshui exclaimed, "Is this guy on the path of invincibility?" Jinger was also a little surprised. "Yes, I just learned about it." On the sea demon's side, a venerable shouted, "Not good, it's the path of invincibility. This heavenly tribulation is invincible. Retreat." The 5 royal city powerhouses who had just triggered the heavenly tribulation were all shocked. "Are you King kidding me? The heavenly tribulation is coming. Where can I retreat at this time?" The heavenly tribulation spread for thousands of kilometers. The 5 Sea Clan powerhouses still wanted to retreat, but suddenly they heard a thunderous explosion. "Not good. We can't run away." "Block it." Han Fei opened his arms, and his flesh and blood were shattering inch by inch. Rumble! At that moment, in the 1,000-kilometer thunder purgatory, endless electric arcs cut through the sky, illuminating the surroundings. Han Fei was wrapped in a large lightning pillar 100 meters thick, surrounded by flashing electric arcs. On the other side, 4 of the 5 peak-level sea spirits who didn't have time to escape were directly crushed in an instant, leaving not even a wisp of smoke. There was only a mermaid with 3 green scales in front of her. However, Even though the defense of these 3 green scales was amazing enough to withstand such a terrifying lightning tribulation, they were still full of cracks. Huff, huff, huff. When Han Fei reappeared, his body was badly mutilated, and his skin could not be seen at all. Even his bones could be seen in his hands. However, Han Fei's chest was heaving, and a terrifying vitality was recovering. His meridians and flesh were rapidly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Han Fei was also frightened. Isn't my heavenly tribulation a bit too strong? He thought that his heavenly tribulation would be very difficult at most of the 3rd one, but it shouldn't be so difficult at the beginning, right? But who knew? Just the first lightning tribulation had almost taken half his life, and his body had almost been split apart. At this moment, Han Fei remembered the Heaven Heart Pill. Old Bai said that this thing could increase the success rate of breaking through to the Explorer realm by 30%. Swish! Han Fei knew how strong the heavenly tribulation was, so he ate it first. As soon as the Heaven Heart Pill entered his mouth, a lotus petal appeared on his head. Jing'er, who was watching in the distance, said in surprise, "Huh, isn't this the Heaven Heart Lotus?" Wushang Shui said in surprise, "Is this a spiritual object? I didn't expect that he even has such a spiritual treasure." Jing'er shook her head slightly. It's a pity that the Heaven Heart Lotus is not so powerful. For ordinary people, it can help them block a heavenly tribulation. But for his heavenly tribulation, it can't even block half of it. But Han Fei didn't think so. He felt that the vitality in his body suddenly burst out. Just now, his flesh and blood had been regenerated, and his skin had grown again. Swish! Han Fei didn't forget to cast the divine healing technique on himself to speed up his recovery. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his body was full of explosive power. Every drop of his blood seemed to be devouring energy. Rumble, the 2nd heavenly tribulation fell. However, this time, to everyone's surprise, the heavenly tribulation this time was a little red. Bam! 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 The 3 green scales in front of the mermaid immediately exploded. At the moment when the heavenly tribulation fell on her, she tried to resist it with a divine weapon, but with a bang, both the divine weapon and her were smashed into pieces and turned into ashes. This was the heavenly tribulation on the road to the invincible realm. Those who thought they were invincible could resist it, but ordinary people didn't even have a chance to resist it. It seemed that the heavenly tribulation knew that it had killed the uninvited guest, so it slowly began to shrink. For more than 1,000 kilometers just now, it began to shrink to about 900 kilometers. Han Fei, who was also hit by the 2nd heavenly tribulation, was not much better than before. The petal completely turned blue, as if it had absorbed endless lightning, and floated above Han Fei's head. Han Fei was badly mutilated again, and inside and outside his body, electric arcs kept jumping. Han Fei found that the so-called Heaven Heart Pill only blocked more than 30% of the power of a single heavenly tribulation. It didn't increase the success rate of passing the heavenly tribulation by 30%, as Old Jiang said. In fact, Han Fei really wronged Old Jiang this time. The Heaven Heart Pill could directly block an entire heavenly tribulation for ordinary people, but was Han Fei an ordinary person? Of course, the Heaven Heart Pill dispersed more than 30% of the power of the heavenly tribulation. Han Fei continued to breathe and quickly swallowed the energy of the 2nd lightning body. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his bone marrow was liquefied. On his bones, there were spots of golden light visible to the naked eye. However, in the sky, the lightning was getting stronger and stronger, but there was no heavenly tribulation. Suddenly, Han Fei realized that the Heaven Heart Pill didn't help him digest the energy, but helped him temporarily absorb more than 30% of the heavenly tribulation. Immediately, Han Fei raised his head, and the lotus petal fell directly into Han Fei's mouth. Peepa! Dozens of cracks appeared on his body that had just recovered, shaking Han Fei's internal organs. However, the 2nd heavenly tribulation was divided into 2 parts and digested, so he passed it safely.